Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Villains Became Deku's Salvation. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Can someone without a quirk be a hero? Asked Midoriya. His teacher's voice broke his train of thought. You guys are all third years now, it's time to start thinking about your careers and futures seriously. I want to hand out these career forms, but I assume you all want to be heroes, he said as threw the papers in the air. Midoriya always wanted to be a hero, it was his dream, but he was born quirkless. On top of that, his childhood best friend became his bully, even giving him the nickname Deku, meaning useless. Bakugo made Izuku's life a living hell by teasing him, abusing him, and belittling his once best friend. You're aiming for UA too, aren't you, Midoriya? Bakugo and the rest of the class turned to look at Midoriya. They all laughed at the idea of Midoriya becoming a hero, but Bakugo turned and slammed his hand on Midoriya's desk while adding an explosion, making him fall back on his chair. Forget them, you're quirkless, you're below everyone else, and you think you can keep up with me, screamed Bakugo as he drove Midoriya to the back of the class. It's always been my dream, and I thought I could try the entrance exam and try, said Midoriya in a low voice as the class mocked him. After school, Midoriya was on his phone. All Might, the #1 hero in Japan as well as his idol, was spotted nearby. Midoriya picked up his hero notebook, but not before Bakugo swiped it out of his hand. Midoriya reached out to grab it, but Bakugo had already burned it. What I'm trying to say is, don't you dare go to UA, nerd, said Bakugo as he put his hand on Izuku's uniform and started using his quirk to burn Midoriya's uniform. As Bakugo was walking out the door with his friends, he said the words that would change Midoriya's fate forever. If you want to be hero so bad, I've got an idea that might save you some time. If you think you'll have a quirk in your next life, go jump off a roof, Bakugo said to Midoriya. Midoriya wanted to fight back, but he couldn't. How could he? Midoriya only mustered an angry look with tears filling up his eyes. Bakugo sneered at Midoriya and showed off his quirk. Midoriya stood in homeroom all alone, crying and afraid, with no friends to turn to, no shoulder to cry on except his mother. She is the only person in this world who is there for him. But it's not enough. Midoriya went outside to go pick up his notebook, and he began having thoughts that no middle schooler should ever have. Why is he allowed to this to me in front everyone, in front of the teachers? They just let him do what he wants. I may be quirkless ... but am human too, am human, aren't I? Midoriya thought as the tears clouded his eyes. Later that day. I don't think so, kid, said All Might. A pro should be willing to risk his life at any moment. Without a quirk you'll just get hurt, or even worse, All Might said firmly to Midoriya. All Might's words made Midoriya freeze up. All his dreams, aspirations, all his hope was being crushed. If you want to help people become a police officer, they get a lot of hate because they lock up the criminals that pros have taken care of, but it is admirable work. It's okay to dream, kid, however you have to be realistic, said All Might with a sigh. Even All Might said it, the #1 hero. Don't cry, you knew this already, and because you knew you still, and yet you tried so damn hard, Midoriya said as he began to cry, his eyes glazed with tears. Midoriya noticed a crowd begin to crowd around an alley, but this time he turned away and walked home. No thoughts filled his mind, no more ambitions, not anymore. And Midoriya greeted him. Hey sweetie, how was school? She said, happy her son came home. Her husband worked overseas. Midoriya put on his fake smile and told her, good mom, I met All Might today, can you believe it? Said Midoriya. Inko smiled and hugged her son. He had always wanted to meet All Might. Little did she know this was the night that she would lose her son. Izuku was alone in his room. It was 10 p.m. He was finally ready. He got all the things he needed and finished up his apology letter. Inside was his reasons why, a location, and his entire life savings, a total of 500,000 yen. I'm sorry, Mom, Midoriya said as he crept through his window. Midoriya arrived to a rooftop at 12:35 a.m. The same rooftop where his dreams were crushed. He took off his shoes, stood at the edge, his notebook in hand. He grasped it tightly and jumped. Am I dead? Thought Midoriya. He expected death. Instead, he was greeted with something much more terrifying. As Midoriya slowly opened his eyes, they grew wide at the sight of a crooked and disgusting-looking blade on his neck. The man wielding the blade wore a torn-up red scarf with multiple blades holstered all over his body. And he had eyes that were filled with murderous intent and malice. It was Stain, the hero killer. Out of instinct, Midoriya tried to scramble backwards, but felt a pain in his right arm and realized that his arm broke from the fall. Stain steps forward slowly and speaks in a raspy, demanding voice. Who are you? And why did you attack me? Izuku choked up and couldn't muster up any words. Answer me now unless you want to die here, Stain shouted. Afraid, Midoriya managed to choke up some words. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, I just... Midoriya said nervously. He couldn't finish his sentence. How could he say he wanted to commit suicide like it was nothing? Stain lifted his blade. You just what? Shouted Stain. I tried to kill myself. Okay, please let me die already, explained Midoriya in a sad tone. Stain was surprised to say the least. He thought this boy was trying to attack him, but it was just a teen who wanted to end it all. Stain, realizing the boy posed no threat, put his sword away and knelt down so he could look at this boy in the eye. "Why did you do it?" Stain asked in a more calm voice. Midoriya wondered if he should even tell him, but after thinking about it he came to the conclusion the hero killer does not gain anything by knowing, so he ultimately decided to tell him. "It started when I was born without a quirk." Midoriya explained his whole life story except his conversation with All Might. "That's what's wrong with this society. A quirk determines what you are in this world now. Fake heroes and mindless criminals pollute this world now." Stain scowled. Midoriya was a bit surprised at what he was hearing, to say the least. Stain was right. Every day more and more heroes became heroes for selfish reasons, only in it for the fame and wealth, and the amount of criminals had also increased dramatically. The silence was broken by Stain yet again. "Hey, what's up that notebook?" Stain asked. Izuku didn't realize he was still holding onto his notebook. "Oh, it's my hero analysis notebook. I record quirks and the possible uses, upgrades, and weaknesses, but I don't need it now." "Want to see it?" responded Midoriya as he lifted his notebook to Stain. Stain knew after hearing his life story Midoriya could have been a true hero. His reason to be one was so noble. Stain received the notebook and began to read every single page, becoming more and more interested each page he turned. "Wow, these are so detailed. You have a real talent. It's amazing. The amount of data behind these notes are incredible," said Stain as he kept looking through the notebook. A subtle crooked smile began to form. Izuku was surprised and happy someone finally acknowledged him for something he did. "Really? You think so? I worked hard on them. My favorite is page 175. I think Kamui's ability is amazing," said Midoriya happily. Stain then gave a sad smile. This kid has been through so much, and even after attempting suicide he still smiles. This kid needs someone to guide him, someone he can look up to, he thought. "Hey kid, I got a proposition for you. Would you like to hear it?" Stain said. Midoriya looked up at Stain with a confused face, and the proposition Stain gave was something Midoriya never expected to hear from the infamous hero killer. "Hey guys, thank you so much for reading. I will be updating this story as soon as possible, but if school and work get in the way, I'll upload a chapter every Friday following the upload schedule of the official manga. Okay, back to the story. Hope you enjoy. Come with me and I'll teach you everything I know," proposed Stain to Midoriya. Midoriya was baffled at the question. The hero killer wanted him to become his apprentice essentially. Midoriya would have said no, but it seemed Stain was the only person in this world who believed he could be seen as more than a useless, quirkless kid aside from his mother. Midoriya then remembered all the bullying and his conversation with All Might. "He'll do it," he responded confidently. Stain was overwhelmed with enthusiasm and joy, but before he could say anything else Midoriya spoke. "But I have some rules. 1. In Midoriya, my mother stays out of it completely. 2. I want to live with you. I can't go home. Not anymore. It's better if people think I'm dead. And 3. I won't kill. I know you kill heroes, but I'm not going to be a part of that," stated Midoriya. Stain was understanding of the conditions except the final one, but he knew deep down Midoriya longed to be a hero even if he was willing to turn to the other side. "Fine, I'll put my ideals on hold for you, and you have my word your mother will be left alone," said Stain. Stain was angry. He had to put hero killing on hold, but he was anxious to teach Midoriya his ways and mold a once scared child into something more. Midoriya was relieved Stain was willing to put his crusade on hold for him. "All right, let's get out of here," Midoriya said, but as soon as he said those words he passed out. He passed out due to the pain in his arm and the amount of adrenaline pumping through his body. Stain thought, "Amazing, we were talking for 30 minutes and just now he passed out. This kid really is something," Stain thought as he picked up Midoriya and took him to one of his hideouts. The next morning, Inko woke up and decided to cook and bring Izuku's favorite meal, katsudon, to his bed. As she opened the door, her legs became heavy as she dropped the plate. She ran to the window and searched all over her son's room, hoping there was a sign that he left early in the morning to the convenience store or to the mall. Inko wanted something, until she found her answer in the form of a note. Inko read the note and she could feel herself become heavier every word she read until finally she collapsed on the floor, crying and gripping onto the note. She kept asking why and began to doubt herself and if she failed as a mother. Inko barely managed to get downstairs to the phone as she called for the police. As Inko was sitting in her house wrapped in the security blanket the police gave her, she was given the news that there was no body at the address given on the note, but Midoriya's shoes were found at the rooftop. "We think he may have gone to a higher rooftop, or in the best case scenario he jumped and landed on something that cushioned his fall, and he decided ultimately to run away from home instead of, the detective said. Both scenarios were bad, but at least in one her son was alive. A little ray of hope lit inside her heart that her son was still alive. "For now we will make a missing persons report. Hopefully he's still out there," explained the detective. "Please find my baby," pleaded Inko as the detective gave a sad smile. "I'll find him, I promise," he said as he began to walk out the door. "Wait, what's your name?" asked Inko. "Forgive me, my name is Naomasa Tsukachi," said Naomasa. "Thank you so much, please find my baby boy," begged Inko. Naomasa smiled and said, "I promise I'll find him." as he finally walked out the door and walked into his vehicle. 2 days later, Midoriya woke up in run-down room with 2 blocks of wood on both sides of his arm. "Where am I?" asked Midoriya out loud. "You're in one of my many hideouts, Midoriya. You passed out from the pain and adrenaline that was pumping throughout your body 3 days ago," stated Stain. Midoriya was astonished he was out that long as he tried to get up, but his arm was still in pain. 3 days. "Oh, I forgot I broke my arm," said Midoriya. Stain looked at Midoriya's arm and explained, "Turns out it's not broken, Midoriya. It's dislocated just very, very badly," said Stain. "Well, can't you, I don't know, relocate it maybe?" exclaimed Midoriya as he held onto his arm. "I said I was going to train you, and now is a good time to start. Midoriya, you are going to relocate your own arm," stated Stain in a serious tone. Midoriya's face grew pale as he noticed he wasn't joking. "Are you serious? How am I going to do that? I can barely handle stubbing my toe, and you want me to relocate my arm," explained Midoriya nervously. "Since you're quirkless, you must train your body to endure pain and train it to be stronger than the average human body," explained Stain as he began to put his hand on his shoulder. "Look at how I do it," Stain said as he dislocated his own shoulder with relative ease and not even flinching. Midoriya cringed at the sight of a shoulder being dislocated in front of him. "Now look, my shoulder is clearly dislocated. With enough training you will be able to relocate certain parts of your body while feeling little to no pain. Look closely how I relocate my arm," Stain explained as he grasped his shoulder and popped it back into place like it was nothing, no sign of hesitation or a hint of pain. Midoriya was shocked, amazed, and terrified. "I have to relocate my own arm," thought Midoriya as he gulped. "We won't begin training until you've done that," Stain said as he walked to the corner of the room and sat in a chair and began to sharpen his blades. Midoriya was nervous to say the least. Every time he grasped his arm it hurt like hell. However, after seeing Stain do it, and because Midoriya was so skilled at analysis, he knew exactly how to pop his arm back in place. Next came the hard part, actually doing it. Midoriya took a deep breath. "Okay, I can do this. I'm not going to be weak anymore," he yelled as he grasped his arm and in one swift motion popped his arm back into place. Midoriya yelped so loudly he scared himself, but his arm was finally back and was surprised. He thought the kid would take a little longer to do it, but he did it almost instantly after just showing him how to do it. Midoriya got up off the bed and gave a victory scream at the top of his lungs. Stain smiled as he saw his apprentice give his victory scream. "What are you made of, kid?" Stain said as he got up and was prepared to catch Midoriya as he was beginning to faint. "Stain, I did it, haha." Midoriya managed to choke up before passing out again. "You sure did." Stain smiled as he laid Midoriya down on the bed again. "If it wasn't for this world's ideals, you would have been a true hero, kid," Stain said as he sighed. "At Midoriya's old school." "What do you mean he's gone? The bastard couldn't have gone anywhere," yelled Bakugo at his principal. "Well, Midoriya is missing, and we thought you would know where he would go since you are his best friend. Maybe a secret hiding spot he used to go to, maybe," explained the principal. "Don't associate me with that nerd. We were never best friends. Are we done here?" clamored Bakugo as he was already 1 foot out the door. "Yes, thank you for your time, Bakugo. You can go back to class," said the principal as he returned to his paperwork. "Deku can go die for all I care. At least now he won't bother me in my road to being the #1 hero," he thought. "Besides, it's not like the idiot had the balls to kill himself. He probably just ran away from home," Bakugo said in his head. "The entrance exam to UA is in 11 months. I have to get ready for my bright future," he said as he smiled and walked back into class. Back at Stain's hideout, Midoriya wakes up again and gets up with his once dislocated arm. It doesn't hurt anymore. It's like nothing ever happened," said Midoriya as Stain was fixing the bandages around his arm. "It's this ointment I made. Take a look. I use over-the-counter ointments and some herbs. Small cuts and sore bones heal faster. Here have the ingredients. I already know how to make it at the top of my head," said Stain as he threw the ointment towards Izuku with the ingredients. "You know, you surprised me, kid. I didn't think you would pop your arm back in place like it was nothing," Stain said as he gave a little laugh. Midoriya couldn't help but smile. "This stuff is amazing," said Midoriya as he started mumbling to himself while looking at the ingredients, wondering how they can be improved. "What are you doing? It's creeping me out a bit," said Stain. Midoriya looked up, snapping out of his trance. "Oh, it's just a habit I have. When I find something that's interesting, I like to think of all its possible uses and improvements, much like my notebook," said Midoriya as he put the ingredient list into his notes for later use. "Get up, we're going out and we're going to start training right now," Stain said. Midoriya was a bit excited too. He was a bit inspired. He had just popped his own arm back into place. "Kid, you need a name. We can't just use her real name," Stain stated. Midoriya already knew what name he wanted. "Deku, that's the name I'll be using," Midoriya said. Stain was surprised. He wanted to use the name that has haunted him for his entire life. "I'm going to make this into a name people will remember," said Midoriya. Stain was proud, to say the least. "You're going to use the name that haunted you your entire life. It's admirable," said Stain. "All right, Deku, let's get started," said Stain. "This is a long one. Hope you guys enjoyed." I wanted to make Stain a bit more mellow in terms of how he interacts with Deku. Of course, he's still very intense and cruel, and the training is only going to get more grueling and intense, just giving him a little soft spot for Deku. Next time. Now the real training begins and Stain isn't pulling any punches. The UA entrance exam is coming up in the next chapter. But how will it play out this time? It has been 3 months and all Stain has been making me do is strength training. I want to learn something, thought Midoriya as he was doing the workout plan Stain gave him. It wasn't an easy workout either. It exhausted and left Midoriya dead every time no matter how many times he did the workout. However, due to the ointment Stain made, it relieved his bones in 2 hours and he was able to start his training again, bypassing the limits of the body. Midoriya, however, has since then perfected the ointment and got the time down to 1 hour. Midoriya was sitting in the room that had all the exercise equipment applying some of his ointment. He had just finished his set when Stain came in. "Hey kid, you better not be slacking on the training," Stain said in a commanding voice. "I'm not, I just finished actually," responded Midoriya. He was about to ask Stain about his real training when Stain spoke. "Put this on, we're going out," Stain said as he threw a costume that looked exactly like the one he drew in his notebook. However, instead it was black and had gray stripes and his gloves were also gray. "I took the liberty of looking in your notebook. I had a feeling you had a costume in there. However, I changed the colors and some other things too. Mostly the colors. I can't have you wearing green, you would stick out like a sore thumb. As for the ears, I got rid of them. It makes you very easy to grab in a fight, so now it's just a hood," explained Stain as he handed him the gloves and a black metal face mask. Midoriya was excited. He finally had his very own costume. Even though Stain changed a couple things, he was happy regardless. "Sorry we didn't go out sooner, kid, but I couldn't get you out there without training your body first," Stain explained. Midoriya was changing in the other room. Midoriya looked at himself in the mirror. He hadn't noticed before, maybe due to the fact he was so into his training, but his body was completely transformed. Midoriya had a very clear six-pack along with strong toned muscles. Midoriya looked at himself one more time in the mirror, amazed that the body before him was his own. "Alright, how is it?" asked Midoriya as Stain looked up while putting knives in his holsters. "Glad I got the right size," replied Stain as he finished up getting ready. "Alright, let's get out of here," said Stain. Midoriya was anxious to finally learn some techniques from Stain. "Hey, where are we going?" asked Midoriya as he was walking next to Stain. "We are going to this rooftop," said Stain as he pointed towards the building. "We are going to start honing your movement, awareness, and fighting ability," explained Stain as they both reached the rooftop. "I won't be holding your hand, Deku. Whether you live or die now solely depends on you now," said Stain calmly as he looked ahead towards the other rooftops. Midoriya was surprised he called him Deku, but that was the name he had chosen to be called. "I know you like your notes too, so I added a voice recorder in your mask so you can listen to them later. There is a knob on the right side, just twist and push and it will record your voice," Stain said as he leapt towards the other building. Midoriya quickly turned the knob and pressed the button. He was ready to record Stain's movements and analyze them later. Midoriya looked down from the edge of the building to see the ground beneath them. He took a deep breath. "Here goes nothing," he said as leapt towards the other building, and to his surprise he made the jump. Not as smooth as Stain, but he made it. "I guess all that exercise is paying off," Deku said as he began to follow Stain, who was way ahead but just visible enough to be able to record his movements. "Alright, I can do this," thought Midoriya as he quickly hopped towards the next building. That entire month Stain focused on movement training, where he showed Midoriya how to use the terrain to his advantage as well as how to keep his balance. He also taught him how to maneuver with tricky terrain. Midoriya was catching on to the training quickly. Soon enough he was able to follow right behind Stain. After that month they began awareness and how to predict and dodge fast-moving objects. Midoriya, being extremely observant while also being a quick thinker, had no trouble with this part of the training, which amazed Stain since it took him almost 4 months to get to Deku's level. Midoriya was able to dodge Stain's knives being thrown at him at almost 95 miles per hour. However, Midoriya did get some really bad cuts. Stain never aimed for vitals, but he didn't hold back. Next came fighting. "Alright, Deku, get dressed in your costume. These next few months will be the most important ones," said Stain as he waited at the door. "I've been waiting for this," said Midoriya as he walked towards the door. "I'm going to teach you my fighting style, but feel free to change it up any way you like. Also, I don't know how to hold back, so be prepared," said Stain. "I guessed as much," Midoriya said jokingly as he stared at an ugly scar in right hand and then put on his glove. "Jesus, barely dodged that one," thought Midoriya as he barely dodged Stain's blade. "He's a monster as usual, and I can never predict what he will be doing next," Midoriya thought as his blade collided with Stain. Midoriya had a fairly large blade, but not long enough to be considered a sword. However, unlike Stain's crooked and unkept blade, his was refined and well kept and made of tungsten, a much stronger metal. Stain quickly threw a knife in Midoriya's direction, where he instantly dodged, but it put him exactly where Stain wanted him as he stabbed him in the leg. Midoriya grunted at the blade piercing his skin. In that moment, Midoriya instincts finally emerged. His face went emotionless, and he snatched one of Stain's throwable knives and stabbed him multiple times in the arm holding the sword. "Son of a," shouted Stain as he loosened his grip on the sword. Midoriya was conscious of what was happening, but not in control of his body. He quickly snapped out of his trance, and Stain followed up with a sucker punch to Midoriya's face, knocking him out and ended the fight. 2 hours later, Midoriya woke up in one of Stain's many hideouts, still a little woozy from the punch. Jesus, this guy really is insane, Midoriya thought as he looked at his left leg that was now stitched up. You think too much when you fight, Stain said, breaking the silence as he was sitting in an armchair stitching up his right arm in the corner of the room. Explain, demanded Midoriya as he kept staring at his leg. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with thinking ahead, but when fighting someone who is full of pure instinct and raw fighting ability or an extremely fast quirk, you have to use your own instincts to fight back. However, most of these people only rely on just that instinct alone and or their quirk and think that alone will win them the fight. If you can think ahead while also using your instincts, you will win every single fight, I guarantee you, explained Stain. Midoriya sat up. Is that what I experienced when we were fighting? Asked Midoriya as Stain looked up. Yes, that's right, however, you lost complete control of your own body, explained Stain as he finished up stitching his last cut. Don't worry, in time you will learn how to control it and use it while still being able to control your own body, Stain said as he applied some of the improved ointment Midoriya had made. Wait, did you bring my video cameras, the ones I set up when we were fighting? Clamored Midoriya. He had set up cameras beforehand so he could learn and observe his fights with Stain. Yeah, I got them. He pointed towards a handful of CDs. Right next to them were a small cabinet full of all the fights he's had with Stain, each with a date and number. It's hard to believe they have been fighting for 3 months straight and just now he's landed a solid blow on Stain. Unlike Midoriya, who is now full of cuts all over his body. I'm going to get stronger and I'll beat you, stated Midoriya as he looked at Stain. Well, then we'll just have to wait and see about that, Deku, responded Stain. It's been 8 months since Midoriya Izuku has gone missing and there still hasn't been any clues as to where his body may be or where he could have gone. It's like this kid jumped and vanished into thin air, Naomasa pondered while going through Midoriya's case file. Naomasa, we need you in the conference room, said Kenji Tsurigami as he walked out the door. Kenji Tsurigami was the chief of police. He was also part man, part dog. Yes, sir, said Naomasa as he put Izuku's file in his personal folder. Okay, everyone, I have good news and bad news, said the chief. He walked towards the front of the room, standing next to a board full of threads, photos, and a map of the city and many other provinces. The good news is Naomasa Tsukachi will be joining this investigation, stated Kenji as he signaled Naomasa to the front. Thank you for having me, he said as he bowed in respect to the other detectives and police officers. Now then, with that out of the way, let's get down to the bad news. Stain, the hero killer, has been absent for almost 9 months now. As we recall, he was last seen around this part of town, said Kenji as he pointed towards a big red circle on the map and multiple photos on the board showing the streets. As far as we know, he just vanished ever since then and there hasn't been any missing pros or attacks, explained Kenji as he looked around the room. How is this bad news, sir? A policeman asked. It's bad news because we have no clue as to what he's planning or doing at this moment in time, and the less we know, the more dangerous this situation becomes, Kenji explained to the policeman as he began to jot down notes. And the families of the heroes he's killed deserve justice for what he's done, Kenji said as he began to review all the information they had on the hero killer ever since his appearance. That will be all. Remember to stay alert, Kenji concluded as he handed a file to Naomasa. This is a copy of all the information we have on this case. Thank you for helping us, Naomasa, said Kenji as he shook his hand. It's my pleasure, Chief, responded Naomasa. The entrance exam is in a couple of months, said Bakugo as he was walking home to school. As he was walking home, he noticed a familiar woman. Inko Midoriya was handing out flyers of her missing son to passerbys. That useless shit is still missing, huh? Bakugo said annoyingly in his head. Until now, he told himself Midoriya had just switched schools, but that is what he told himself to avoid feeling guilty. Nerd probably ran away and tried to become a vigilante or something. Bakugo said he couldn't help but laugh at the thought Midoriya helping anyone. Oi, old hag, him home, shouted Bakugo as he walked upstairs to his room. Okay, responded his mother. Bakugo pulled out his weights and began to work out. He wanted to get ready for the entrance exam. Stupid Deku, do you think this will faze me? You did not become anything, and I'm going to be the most famous and rich hero who ever lived. You were always a pebble, nothing more. I will become the best there is, and you can just watch and see how weak you really are. Bakugo grunted as he was doing his reps. 2 months later, Midoriya dodged Stain's katana as he jumped on Stain's shoulders and pushed himself off, doing a backflip to create some space. Midoriya was on an entirely different level than when he first started fighting Stain. Stain dashed towards him at incredible speed and Midoriya did the same, but he went over Stain's head and in one swift motion cut his back. No words were exchanged as he quickly ignored the cut and pulled out a throwing knife and threw it towards Midoriya's face. In response, Midoriya, instead of dodging, grabbed the blade in midair and threw him back. Much to Stain's surprise, he flinched the action and dodged just in time. Midoriya could now control his killer instinct and was able to think clearly. Midoriya saw Stain was disoriented at his most recent move, so he went in for the decisive blow as he dashed towards him with his blade in hand, just stopping before his neck. Haha, yield, said Stain out of breath as he fell on his back looking towards the ceiling. He had never gone up against anyone as fast as him in a long time. I win, Midoriya said as he fell on his bottom. He couldn't help but feel powerless, however. You could have won, with your quirk blood girdle, Midoriya said in a defeated tone. Stain could paralyze his enemies by licking their blood. If it wasn't for training me, I would lose every single time, explained Midoriya as he looked at all the old cuts all over his arms and body. You're right, kid, I could have won every single time, but then it wouldn't be training now, would it? Said Stain, confirming Midoriya's statement. I knew it, Midoriya said, defeated, but before he could say anything else. But this time, even with my quirk, I would have lost, stated Stain as he got up and extended his hand towards Midoriya. I didn't even land a single cut on you, explained Stain as Midoriya grabbed his hand and pulled himself up. What? Exclaimed Midoriya as he got up. Look at my blades, Stain said as he showed him all the blades he used during the fight. They're clean, he said as he handed Midoriya all the blades. You won, kid, congrats, said Stain in a proud voice to his apprentice. Thank you, Stain, for everything, said Midoriya as he closed his hand and remembered a time he couldn't even touch Stain. The world is soon going to know your name, Deku, Stain said as he made an evil smile. I'm prepared to show the world who I am, responded Midoriya as he looked up. Midoriya and Stain were hopping over buildings searching for their prey. So what's the plan, Stain? Midoriya said as he crouched and looked overhead at the city. We're looking for this man. His hero name is Captain Celebrity, said Stain as he handed Midoriya a photo of the man. Captain Celebrity, I've looked into him. He's pretty strong, explained Midoriya as he looked over towards Stain. Yeah, this guy got into some heat over in America for sexual abuse, so he came here to lay low and get with more women here, said Stain in a disgusted tone. Midoriya and Stain had taken down many heroes, but not someone of this caliber. He's supposed to be around this area as far as I know. Also, he loves being swarmed by his personal paparazzi, so we will have to make sure we seclude him. His quirk is flight, but on top of that he has super strength. He can lift an entire cruise ship, said Midoriya as he flipped through his notebook looking at the notes he had on the hero. This guy will instantly leave the scene if he feels his life is in danger, so keep that in mind, Stain. We have to do this fast, explained Midoriya. Midoriya spotted Captain Celebrity patrolling the empty street looking for women. All right, let's do this, kid, said Stain enthusiastically as they both dropped down to an alley. Help me, this guy is going to kill me, shouted Midoriya as Stain was walking towards him, giving off a devilish smile. Midoriya had cut his hair short, wore blue contact lenses, and wore a medical mask to hide his identity. Help, Midoriya shouted one last time. Captain Celebrity flew to the alleyway where Midoriya was. I am here, boy. After I defeat this villain, I'll sign your shirt, said Captain Celebrity in a triumphant voice. The hero flew towards Stain, slowly flying past and in front of Midoriya. Now then, come quickly, paparazzi. You're going to want to see this, he said as he put his phone away. Shit, he called them that quickly. All right, we have to do this quick, thought Midoriya along with Stain, who understood what Izuku was thinking. As they both nodded, they began the assault on Captain Celebrity. Stain dashed towards the hero while throwing a blade simultaneously. Captain Celebrity barely dodged and was surprised at the sheer speed Stain had over him. But Captain Celebrity flew towards Stain, tackling him and ramming him into the wall. Tusk, you're going to have to do better than that if you want to stand up to me, Captain Celebrity said in a confident voice. Midoriya in those moments got in position for his part of the plan. Stain noticed Midoriya's position and began to execute the plan they made beforehand. He moved towards Captain Celebrity and tried to cut him. As soon as he saw this, Captain Celebrity flew up, dodging Stain. Please don't tell me that's all you go, but before Captain Celebrity could finish his sentence, a sharp pain entered his right shoulder blade as he realized that Midoriya was on his back holding the dagger that stabbed him. The kid, Captain Celebrity thought as Midoriya pushed himself off the hero's back and onto an AC unit where he threw the blade at Stain. It's over, said Stain with a wicked smile. This is bad, I better leave, thought Captain Celebrity, but before he could fly away, Stain licked the blade Midoriya gave him and Captain Celebrity fell like a rock to the ground. Now then, Captain Celebrity, don't be mad, you brought this onto yourself. You and these fake heroes who plague this world, Stain said as he walked towards the incapacitated hero. Midoriya let Stain go on with his rant. He never interrupted him when he was in this state. It just made him even more unstable. Now this is where it ends, oh Captain, Stain said as he lifted his blade prepared to kill the hero before Midoriya stopped him by pulling the hero away. What are you doing? Stain asked angrily. Midoriya quickly put up his blade. Stain, my condition was no killing. Leave him to a bloody pulp if you want, but don't finish him, said Midoriya as he looked at Stain, who was filled with so much rage and insanity. You knew this was coming, Stain, just accept it, said Midoriya, still holding on to Captain Celebrity, who was on the floor confused at the scene before him. Fine, Stain said, giving up as he walked towards Captain Celebrity. Looks like you're getting a beating instead of death today, hero. Consider this mercy, said Stain as he began to kick and beat Captain Celebrity, who was on the floor barely able to catch his breath. Midoriya was always beaten like that by Bakugo, so he didn't join in, but he did watch mostly to make sure Stain didn't kill him. The guy did deserve it for all those women he assaulted in America. As Stain finished up his beating, he began to speak. Remember this day, hero, the day Deku and Stain the hero killer beat you into this miserable state, he said as Midoriya walked up to the beaten and broken man. Reflect on your actions, hero, said Midoriya as he dialed the police and masked his voice telling them location of Captain Celebrity and his current state. Midoriya and Stain quickly leapt from wall to the top of the building and left. Little did they know a member of Captain Celebrity's paparazzi crew recorded the fight and the beating he received. "You did good, kid, but I'm not sure how long I can put my ideals on hold for you," said Stain as he paced impatiently around the room. Midoriya was aware Stain was mentally unstable when it came to his crusade. It was like an addiction. Izuku knew he couldn't hold Stain back for long. It was only a matter of time until he snapped and went on a rampage. Midoriya was at a crossroads. He didn't want to leave Stain, but he knew if he stuck with him he would eventually go against his final rule. Stain Midoriya was about to speak when Stain interrupted him. "Kid, we have to part ways," said Stain in a stern voice. Midoriya was surprised at what Stain just said. "I can't put my ideals on hold just for you, and sooner or later I'm going to snap," Stain explained as he finally sat down in his armchair. "Stain, you don't have to," said Midoriya before he was interrupted again by his mentor. "You may be a villain, but you aren't an evil kid. I knew since day one if it wasn't for quirks and the bullying you endured, I know you would have made an outstanding hero," explained Stain as he got up and walked towards his apprentice. "Here, these guys contacted me to join their group. They said they were interested in both of us, but they were more into you due to your impressive observation and note-taking," said Stain as he handed Midoriya a business card with one address on it. "Get your shit and get out of here," Midoriya said Stain as he opened the front door. Midoriya couldn't say anything. Stain was right. He himself knew he would eventually lose it if Midoriya kept stopping him from heroes every time. "I understand," said Midoriya sadly as he grabbed his things and began to walk out the door. "Deku," Stain called out as he threw a knife toward Midoriya, to which he catched with ease. Attached to it was a red calling card. It had a phone number. "Stay sharp, kid," Stain said as he closed the door to his hideout. Midoriya was all alone again. He couldn't help but feel sad. Stain had been a teacher, mentor, and most of all the father figure he always needed. Midoriya looked down. Stain gave him. "Guess I'll see what these guys want with me," said Midoriya as he headed towards the address. Meanwhile, at the Katsuki household, "The entrance exam is in 1 week and I'm going to ace it," said Bakugo as he looked at the UA website stating the time, date, and location the exam was going to take place. "Bakugo, the food is ready, we have guests," yelled Bakugo's mother from downstairs. "All right, Mom, it'll be right down," yelled Bakugo as he exited his room and went downstairs to eat dinner. Much to his surprise, Inko Midoriya was downstairs helping his mom finish up. "How much you've grown, Kaken," said Inko in a kind tone. Bakugo flinched at the name Kaken. The only one who called him that was Midoriya. "Good afternoon," said Bakugo as he sat down at the table. "I'm sure you know what happened to Midoriya, so please have respect or don't say anything at all," whispered Bakugo's mother into his ear. "Even when the dumb nerd is missing, he's giving me fucking hard time," thought Bakugo angrily as he ate his food quickly. He didn't want to hear anything related to Deku. Bakugo quickly finished his food and went back up to his room without saying a word. "So Inko, how's the search coming along?" asked Mitsuki as she cleaned her plate and her son's. "It's not going well. They can't seem to find him anywhere," responded Inko as she looked at her food. "I'm sure he's out there, sweetie. He has to be," said Mitsuki in a loving voice as she grasped Inko's hand. "I hope he's eating enough," said Inko as she poked at her food some more. "This is the place, huh?" said Midoriya as he looked at the building and the others around it. "Well, it's deserted, so that's a good sign, I hope," he thought as a black mist engulfed him out of nowhere. As soon as Midoriya was teleported, he quickly pulled out his blade and prepared himself. "Calm yourself, we are not going to hurt you," said the well-dressed black mist as he began to clean a shot glass while next to him was a blue-haired teen with hands all over his body. Midoriya wasn't convinced and still kept his guard up. "You guys the League of Villains?" asked Midoriya as he threw the calling card in their direction. "Yes, we are, boys," said a deep chilling voice. Much to Midoriya's surprise, it came from a monitor mounted on a wall. "Sensei," said Shigaraki as looked towards the monitor. "Now then, let's get down to business, Deku." "That is what you go by, correct?" said the man on the monitor. "Yes, it's Deku," responded Midoriya as he lowered his weapon, realizing if they wanted him dead they would have done something by now. "Deku, I'm going to be frank, we need your analyzing skills. It's as simple as that, and possibly aid us in more ambitious projects in the future," said the man calmly. "What's the catch?" asked Midoriya as he knew a group like this wasn't without a catch usually. "There is no catch. You will work for us only. We only want your analysis on heroes and that brilliant mind of yours," explained the man. "If that's all, I see no reason not to join," Midoriya said. However, he knew if he refused he was going to die. This man had that aura about him. "Excellent," said the man, but before he could say another word, Midoriya spoke. "I have 2 conditions, however," Midoriya said as he looked at the man on the screen. "1, I will not kill. 2, I can come and go as I please. Also, you don't have to worry about me saying anything. I'd rather stay hidden," explained Midoriya as he gripped his blade, prepared for the worst. "Interesting. Okay, Deku, we only need you for analysis for the time being anyway, so I have no problem with these conditions," said the man in a low, intimidating voice. "All right then. One more thing, what's your name?" "I would like to know my employer's name," asked Midoriya as he lowered his blade yet again. My name is All for One and the Black Mist is Kurogiri and this young man is Shigaraki, responded All for One. Midoriya's eyes grew. He knew exactly who this man was and what he was capable of. All for One, you were quite famous when quirks began to emerge, said Midoriya as he looked towards the monitor. You know your history. Now tell me, Deku, what quirk do you possess? Asked All for One as he looked at Deku. I'm actually quirkless, responded Midoriya in a proud voice. Midoriya had accepted his status and now saw it as a strength rather than a weakness. Interesting, it's just what this league needs, real talent. Nothing given to them by birth, said All for One, displaying his interest in Midoriya. I will provide you an apartment on this street by tonight. Welcome, Deku, to the League of Villains, exclaimed All for One. Thank you for having me, responded Midoriya as he bowed in respect to everyone in the room. The next morning, 7 a.m., I don't like him at all, said Shigaraki in an annoyed voice. He really didn't like Midoriya, most likely due to his no-killing rule and him getting praised by Sensei. Kurogiri didn't dislike Midoriya, in fact he respected him for how mature he seemed. Good morning, Kurogiri. Good morning, Shigaraki, said Midoriya as he sat at the bar. Good morning, Deku. What will it be today? Asked Kurogiri as he began to arrange plates and cups. A bowl of cereal if you can, Kurogiri, responded Midoriya. Of course, responded Kurogiri as he began to serve him his cereal. Midoriya turned to look at Shigaraki, who was staring at him. Deku, if you don't deliver or you spill anything, I'll kill you myself, said Shigaraki as he stared at Midoriya. Don't worry about me, Shigaraki, responded Midoriya as he began to eat his cereal and watch TV. Today was the UA entrance exam and it was all over the news. Midoriya returned to his apartment that was right next to the league's hideout. Midoriya let out a sigh. He wanted to be a hero so badly, but it was far too late. A smile grew across Midoriya's face. I don't start any work until tomorrow. Let me show the world that someone without a quirk can pass the entrance exam, said Midoriya as he put on a pair of pants and a shirt. Also, to hide his identity, Midoriya put on his hazel blue contacts and a medical face mask. As for his hair, he quickly went to the convenience store and bought white spray-on hair dye. Okay, if I take the rooftops, I'll make it just barely, said Midoriya as he walked out his apartment and traversed his way to the rooftop, folder in hand. Thanks for the fake paperwork, Stain, said Midoriya as he let out a smile. Stain made sure to give Midoriya some cover in case anyone ever tried to question him for whatever reason. Midoriya's fake name was Akaguro Hiro. He had attended a middle school in Hasu to which he also has paperwork too. Stain had good connections, so if they tried to find Akaguro Hiro in the system, it wouldn't be a problem. At the UA entrance, all right, I made it, said Midoriya as he put on his medical mask and made his way to registration. Midoriya was walking to the entrance as he tripped on a broken piece of pavement, to which he regained his balance instantly and felt a tap on his back and began to float. Midoriya was completely calm and turned to see who touched him. He was aware of her presence, but he wanted to maintain his cover. "Aw, thank you," said Midoriya calmly as she pressed the tips of her fingers together, releasing Midoriya. "It's my quirk, sorry for stopping you, but it's a bad omen if you trip and fall. It sure is nerve-wracking, huh? Well, good luck to us both," said the round-faced girl as she walked away. "Interesting quirk," said Midoriya as he noted her quirk mentally as she walked away. Midoriya entered to the amphitheater after registration. They tried to get Midoriya to take off his mask for the test, but Midoriya's time with Stain and baiting and heroes taught him how to lie and put on, and they let him through to the theater. "Welcome to today's live performance, everybody say hey," said Present Mike, only to receive no response. He was a pro hero who also held a talk show. Midoriya was a couple minutes late as he walked in and found the row and seat he was assigned. As Midoriya approached his seat, he recognized a familiar face. It was Bakugo, his bully and ex-best friend. "I knew you'd be here, didn't think we would be this close. Sorry, I can't help but hate you, Kachan. Everything you did to me," scowled Midoriya in his head. He hated Bakugo for everything he had done to him, and not being able to do anything at that moment made Izuku angrier. Midoriya sat down and began to listen to the seminar when he felt Bakugo's eyes staring at him. "Now here are the rules. Each foe villain has a set number of points attached to it, and you will destroy these villains. The higher level the villain, the more points you get," explained Present Mike. Papers with detailed instructions began to be passed around. As Midoriya received his paper, he began to mumble all possible outcomes, strategies, and all the foe villains' weaknesses and strengths. Bakugo turned to look at his neighbor, mumbling to himself, and couldn't help but be reminded of Midoriya as his blood boiled. Why did they add such a big villain with no points? Probably for someone to be presented with the opportunity to show heroic qualities. Hidden points, maybe, Midoriya mumbled as a tall boy with glasses stood up and asked a question over the exam. "And you with the white hair, you've been mumbling this whole time. It's distracting. If this is some sort of game to you, please leave immediately." Some students around Midoriya began to snicker and giggle before Midoriya responded. "Mind your business," said Midoriya in an intimidating tone as he stared at the boy with glasses with cold eyes. The theater went silent, and the boy with glasses saw the look in his eyes and sat back down. Present Mike went on to explain the rest of the test, and everyone was assigned their test sites. Midoriya was assigned test site 2. He was with Bakugo, the girl from earlier, and the boy with glasses who called him out earlier in the theater. "Excuse me, may I have a weapon?" asked Midoriya as he spoke to one of the attendants at the test site. "Excuse me, a weapon? Your quirk is enough, isn't it?" said the attendant in a confused voice. "I don't have a quirk, so I'm going to need a weapon unless you want me to fight the villains with my bare hands," said Midoriya in a deadpan voice as he looked at the attendant. The attendant was shocked a quirkless boy was taking the entrance exam. There was no rule against it, but no one quirkless has ever taken the test. "Oh, sure, HM, will this do?" asked the attendant, still confused as he handed Midoriya a retractable metal staff. "This is good enough," said Midoriya as he received the staff and walked towards the gates to the test site, the attendant staring at the boy as he walked away. Midoriya was at the front waiting for the gates to open. He wasn't stupid. UA was a prestigious school. They wanted heroes who could act instantly, so the moment the gates opened he was ready. Midoriya looked around and saw Bakugo by himself making little explosions in his hand. Meanwhile, the boy in glasses was looking around and the round-faced girl was taking deep breaths. The gates began to open slightly and slowly, but in that instant Midoriya turned on his switch and instantly ran through the gate. Midoriya spotted 2 levels 1s and quickly pulled out his staff and with one strike broke the bot in one hit, shattering its metal armor like it was paper. He quickly followed up to the next bot, easily dodging its swing and shattering his head in one hit. Midoriya quickly moved to the building and hopped from wall to the roof. As soon as Midoriya made it to the roof, he quickly moved throughout the site, destroying any bots he encountered. "Begin. What are you guys waiting for? The test already started and one student already has 20 points, shouted Present Mike in the intercom. Everyone quickly dashed to the entrance, which was now wide open. 20 points, said everyone as they ran. Bakugo was angry someone was getting ahead of him, and by so much already he quickly began to rack up his points along with the boy with glasses and his engine legs, kicking the bots into rubble, and the round-faced girl who was making robots float and drop, breaking them on impact to the ground. 15 minutes later in the observation room. "Who is this kid?" said Eraserhead, who was impressed at Midoriya along with many other teachers. All Might, who was going to be teaching at UA, was also impressed. "He'll pull up his file now," said Nezu. "Okay, his name is Akaguro Hiro. He graduated top of his class in terms of grades. And he's quirkless," said Nezu as he quickly looked at the monitor which showed Midoriya on screen. The entire monitoring room went silent to news of a quirkless boy doing so well on the entrance exam. All Might was reminded of the day he told Midoriya to give up on being a hero. "Was I wrong to say such a thing to that boy?" thought All Might. They began to watch Midoriya fight a level 3 foe villain. Midoriya quickly maneuvered around the robot and twisted its head off with his bare hands. "He's been trained well," stated Eraserhead as he watched the boy rip the robot's head off and crush it underfoot. "This is too easy," said Midoriya as he destroyed another robot. He had a total of 67 points at the moment. "I think that's enough. I should leave some for these guys," said Midoriya as he retracted his staff and parked his way to the top of a building. "Let's see how the rest of these people are doing," he thought as he scanned the area looking at the other students fight the remaining robots, but a loud rumble made him lose his train of thought. "The obstacle has," said Midoriya calmly as he sat at the edge of the building and was astonished a school had the budget to make such a big robot. Midoriya got up and made his way closer to the robot to get a better look when he saw a familiar face. "It's that girl with the zero-gravity quirk," thought Midoriya as he saw her run away from the huge robot. As the girl was running, she tripped and rubble from the building landed on her leg, leaving her directly on the robot's path. Knowing them, they will stop the bot before it crushes her. But there is always the chance she could die to the debris, thought Midoriya. He looked in the girl's direction and ran in her direction to help her. Midoriya easily lifted the rocks and rubble and carried her out of the robot's path. "Thank you," said the girl as she blushed. "Don't mention it," said Midoriya as he set her down. "My name is Uraraka Ochako, by the way," said Uraraka as she caught her breath. "Akaguro Hiro, nice to meet you," said Midoriya as he looked towards the clock. The test had 1 minute left. It was practically over. "Well, it was nice meeting you, Uraraka. I hope you pass," said Midoriya as he began jogging towards the exit. Uraraka couldn't say a word. She was still in shock over everything that had happened. In the monitor room, the teachers were all impressed by Midoriya and his skills. "Quirks really aren't everything, huh?" said Nezu as he marked Akaguro Hiro in the 1A class. "He's broken all the school records. I want to speak with him personally," said Nezu as he got up from his chair. Several other teachers along with All Might spoke up and also wanted to meet this quirkless boy. "Was I wrong to deny that boy his dreams?" asked All Might to himself as followed Nezu to the amphitheater. "Students, first off, great job everyone, you all did great. However, as you all know, many of you won't be accepted," said Nezu in a sad tone. He knew that all of these kids wanted to be heroes. "But don't worry, if you don't get accepted to UA, that doesn't mean you can't become a hero. Anyone can become hero, even someone quirkless," said Nezu as he brought up the scoreboard. Many laughed at the idea of someone quirkless becoming a hero. Nezu brought up the scoreboard. It showed the top 5, which consisted of first Akaguro Hiro, second Katsuki Bakugo, 3rd Ijiru Kirishima, 4th Tenulita, and in 5th Ochako Uraraka. She got lucky. She got a lot of rescue points from helping the other student. Will these students please come up to the stage, said Nezu as he scanned the room. The top 5 made their way to the front of the theater. Bakugo, however, was filled with so much anger that he didn't get first place. He wanted to punch the kid in first place. As the top 5 reached the front, Nezu spoke. You 5 did amazingly on the test, each in your own way. Some through combat and others in rescue, showing the true marks of a hero. However, one of you went above and beyond our expectations. Akaguro, will you please step forward, said Nezu as he looked towards Midoriya and signaled him to step forward. Midoriya took a step forward, a bit interested what the principal was going to say. This boy broke all school records, showing impressive skills and displayed qualities of a true hero. And above all, being quirkless, said Nezu as he showed Midoriya's overall score of 127. The entire theater along with the top 5 were astonished. A quirkless person got the highest score ever. He's quirkless and he got that high of a score. That's impossible. He probably cheated or something that's not right, said the students, staring at the score and at Midoriya. He's quirkless, and I lost. This fucker cheated or something. There is no way. A quirkless nobody did better than me, thought Bakugo angrily as he stared at the Midoriya. Akaguro with contempt. We monitored Akaguro and can confirm there was no cheating involved, assured Nezu as he showed footage of Midoriya disposing of the robots. Anyone can become a hero and Akaguro is a prime example. Take a moment and reflect. Become the heroes of tomorrow by learning today, said Nezu as he began to walk off the stage. Alright, that will be all. Everyone make sure to check your mailboxes for your letter, said Present Mike as he finished up with the presentation. Akaguro, me and some other teachers would like to speak with you after the presentation. Is that okay? Asked Nezu as he pulled Midoriya to the side. Sure, that's fine, responded Midoriya as he went back to his seat. After the presentation, Midoriya followed Nezu to a conference room along with a couple pro heroes including All Might. Akaguro, I would like to personally give you your letter of acceptance into UA, said Nezu as he handed Midoriya a letter with big UA letters on the front. You surprised us all today, not just because you were quirkless, but also because you showed how skilled you are and saved a fellow student from the faux villain, knowing there was no merit in doing so, explained Nezu as he looked in Midoriya's direction. Midoriya had no interest in attending UA anymore. He was down a different path now. All the teachers began to question Midoriya in terms of who taught him to fight and move. Midoriya had an answer to all their questions. He knew he couldn't mention Stain taught him, so he said his father taught him everything he knows. Akaguro, I have a question, my boy, asked All Might as he stepped forward. A while ago, a boy asked me if he could become a hero, and at that time I denied his aspirations, telling him it wasn't possible without a quirk. However, after watching you today, I realized a quirk doesn't make the hero. My question is, was it the right thing to do? Said All Might as he looked in Midoriya's direction. If you don't mind, I'd like to recreate the scene with me as the boy so I can give you an accurate answer, said Midoriya as he showed a calm face. Sure, thank you, my boy, said All Might as he lifted his shoulders and took a deep breath. Okay, we were at a rooftop after he grabbed me after jumping to bring a villain to the police, and asked me the question, said All Might as he explained the events that had transpired beforehand. I see, I'll try my best, said Midoriya, but he knew every emotion he felt that day, so recreating it won't be hard. All Might, I admired you for a long time and I wanted to ask you if a quirkless person can be a hero. I know there isn't a quirkless hero out there, but I want to help people. I want to be like you, said Midoriya in the timid voice he used to have. Of course, he masked his voice to be deeper. All Might was taken back by how almost it sounded like young Midoriya. All Might almost said the opposite of what he originally said to him that day, mostly due to the display the quirkless boy showed today. I don't think it's possible for a person to become a hero without a quirk. But if you would like to help people, then consider joining the police force. They don't get the praise like heroes do, but it's a fine profession, said All Might. A hint of guilt could be heard from his voice. All Might began to doubt. After hearing himself, he began to realize something. HMIC, said Midoriya as he clenched his fist. After that, I left the roof, leaving the young boy up there, said All Might as he tried to regain his composure. All Might was afraid for some reason. He was afraid of the answer he was about to receive. That was cold, All Might. If I was him, I'd like to jump off a building because my idol, my last string of hope, told me to give up on my dreams. But you know what, I think he just moved on and began looking for people that might accept him and give him hope, said Midoriya, holding back his frustration. All Might's smile faltered and his heart sank at the thought of suicide. I see, choked up All Might. Midoriya was so frustrated he couldn't tell All Might exactly what he wanted to say, so he coded his words. All Might, you shattered his dreams from what I can tell. It sounded like he looked up to you and you were his last string of hope. All he needed was a few words of encouragement and he would be standing here before you. It seemed like he wanted to be a hero more than anybody. I'm sure he would have tried his hardest to be able to stand in the arena even without a quirk. But he didn't even get the chance to try, Midoriya said to All Might. All Might grew cold as Midoriya gave his answer. He was right on the dot. All Might did shatter a boy's dream and he had no right whatsoever to do so. Trust me, being quirkless isn't easy. Being quirkless nowadays means you get bullied, belittled, and treated as something lower than human. If that boy wanted to be a hero after all that, I think he deserved at least a chance to achieve his dream, don't you think? Said Midoriya as he grasped the note. All Might and the rest of the room went silent at what Midoriya said. They didn't know quirkless individuals went through this much hardship. He's probably moved on by now. Hopefully. Don't beat yourself up, All Might, said Midoriya as he put the note on the desk at the front of the room. Thanks but no thanks. My aspirations for becoming a hero died long ago. I only came to this test to prove the world wrong about quirkless people and to set a record at this school no one will ever be able to break. And when they ask who holds it, the answer they will receive is, it was a quirkless boy who had no intention of becoming a hero, said Midoriya as he walked towards the door, walking and closing it behind him. The room was silent. The boy didn't even want to be a hero. Well then, I suppose there is nothing we can do about it. He has every right to deny us. I am sad, however, to see such talent walk away, said Nezu as he saw Midoriya walk towards the exit. Hey you, Bakugo shouted at Akaguro as he was walking out of UA. Don't think you're better than me just because you passed entrance exam with a high score, loser, shouted Bakugo. Huh, okay, whatever you say, Midoriya said as he ignored Bakugo and began walking to the League of Villains hideout. Midoriya arrived at his apartment and threw himself on the bed. It's far too late for that now. I've chosen my path, said Midoriya as he pulled out a notebook. Midoriya began documenting the quirks he saw at the entrance exam. Midoriya was writing things down when a familiar voice came on the monitor in his room. I saw your amazing display at the UA entrance exam, Deku said. All for One. Midoriya was surprised All for One was watching. How did you watch the exam? How did you know I'd be there? Asked Midoriya as he looked up from his notebook. I simply hacked a monitor. And I keep tabs on everyone, even Shigaraki, explained All for One as he sat back in his chair. I must say you truly showed some skill out there, Deku. Quirks aren't everything in this world and you showed them today, said All for One in a wicked tone. Yeah, it was pretty easy. To tell you the truth, I always wanted to be hero, but everyone just bullied and mocked me in my dream and I gave in, said Midoriya as he went back to writing in his journal. So he wanted to be a hero. That's interesting. I wonder what changed. He'll find out in time, but for now he'll use his skills for the league, thought All for One as he shifted in his chair. Well then, get some rest, Deku. Tomorrow you begin your work. Prepare yourself, he said as the monitor went blank. Midoriya documented the rest of the quirks he remembered and put the notebook away. Guess I should go to bed, Midoriya said as he went to sleep. Next time, Midoriya finally begins his work at the league, but little does he know Naomasa is starting to get closer to the truth of his disappearance. Hey guys, here is the next chapter. Hope you enjoyed Deku's debut. 2 weeks later, after the UA entrance exam. It's UA's first day of class. Students who did well on the practical exam began to pour into Class 1A. The student list was as followed. Katsuki Bakugo, Explosion. Shoto Todoroki, Fire and Ice. Achako Uraraka, Zero Gravity. Momoye Irazu, Creation. Fumikage Takoyami, Dark Shadow. Suyu Asui, Frog Can Do Anything a Frog Can. Kyoka Gyro, Earphone Jack. Ajiro Kirishima, Hardening. Mina Ashido, Acid. Tenya Ada, Engine. Denki Kaminari, Electrification. Yuga Aoyama, Naval Laser. Meshurawa Jiro, Tail. Minoru Mainta, Pop Off. Mizo Shoji, Dupli Arms. Rikido Sato, Sugar Rush. Koji Koda, Anavoice. Toru Hakeger, Invisibility. Hanta Zero, Tape. 19 students in total. Only one particular quirkless boy was missing. Good morning, said Aizawa Aka, eraser head laying on the floor in a cocoon-like state, to which the class responded with surprised yelps. In your homeroom, teacher Shoto Aizawa. Please find your assigned seats, said Aizawa in a dead voice. All the students began to sit, all except one seat in behind Bakugo. All right, now that you all found your seats, let's begin class, said Aizawa, but before he could say anything else, he was interrupted. Hey sensei, are you sure everyone is here? Said Mina Ashido, a pink-skinned girl with horns, as she looked towards the empty seat behind Bakugo. Yes, that's everyone. The boy who broke school records and was number 1 in the practical exam rejected his acceptance letter to UA. He simply came to prove a point, said Aizawa as he got out a clipboard. Some students were amazed someone rejected UA. He's not here, huh, thought Uraraka sadly as she fidgeted in her seat. Fuck, and I wanted to pound that quirkless shit, thought Bakugo angrily as he snapped his pencil in half. Yes, well, nothing we can do about it. Now get changed into your hero clothes, we're going out to the yard, said Aizawa. Back at the league, Midoriya was done improving his suit. He made major adjustments such as changing the material, upgrading his face mask, and giving himself a couple new gadgets. Midoriya wasn't out fighting, instead he was stalking and observing multiple heroes and jotting down notes on their quirks. Excellent work, Deku, my boy, your observation skills really are that of a genius, said All for One as the monitor switched on. Thank you, sensei, said Midoriya as he nodded his head and began to scan his notes and print out copies for the league. Deku, how would you like to get out and cause a bit of trouble? said All for One in a wicked voice. What's the trouble? Asked Midoriya as he kept scanning his notes. Shigaraki has planned an attack on UA. If you're interested, talk to Shigaraki, he will fill you in. Don't worry, I'll talk to him about your possible involvement, said All for One as the monitor switched off. Guess I'll go. I don't want to get rusty only doing my workouts, said Midoriya as he looked at his scarred body in the mirror. Guess I'll go talk to Shigaraki, he said to himself as walked next door to the League hideout. I don't want him in my group, sensei, exclaimed Shigaraki at the monitor. Now Shigaraki, you must make use of every available member of the League, and Deku is no common villain. Unlike most, he has the brain that could become the foundation for the League, explained All for One as he saw Midoriya walk in. Deku, have you made up your mind? Asked All for One. Yes, if it's okay with Shigaraki, I would like to be a part of the attack, said Midoriya as he sat down at the bar. Fine, you can come, said Shigaraki as he scratched his wrist. Good, then it's settled. Shigaraki filled Deku in with all the details. Best of luck. I'll be attending to some other business meanwhile, said All for One as the screen went blank. All right, Deku, here's the plan, said Shigaraki, annoyed as he began to explain the plan to Midoriya. At the police station. Midoriya, where did you go? Pondered Naomasa. He had been obsessed with Midoriya and his case because of the promise he made to Inko Midoriya. So his shoes are here, but then he's gone. It just doesn't make sense where he could be. Naomasa thought as he looked over at his stained folder. He noticed a familiar building. He picked up the photo and brought it alongside the building where Midoriya's shoes were found. No, it can't be. Is Stain connected to Midoriya somehow? They both went missing the same day and around the same vicinity, said Naomasa to himself as he tapped his foot. Shit, said Naomasa, frustrated as he rubbed his face. Just a bit more evidence and he'll be able to finish this puzzle and find you, Midoriya, thought Naomasa as he got up from his desk and began to head out of the station. He bumped into an old friend. Hey Naomasa, said the very skinny man. Toshinori, said Naomasa, surprised to see Toshinori Yagi, his old friend most commonly known as All Might. I need a friend right now, said Toshinori. What's bothering you, Toshi? Asked Naomasa as he poured tea for his friend and himself. I've been thinking of what I said to a young boy a while ago recently, said Toshinori as he held the tea in both hands. I told the boy he couldn't become a hero because he was quirkless, Toshinori explained as he took a sip of his tea. Well, you're not wrong, Toshinori. Being a hero nowadays is no easy feat even with a quirk. To be quirkless as well, the chances become very slim, responded Naomasa as he looked at his friend. I know that, but I shattered his dream. I knew the moment I told him. I knew he was no longer going to be a hero. But I only said such a thing to protect him, said Toshinori as he clenched his fist. Listen, Toshinori, you did what you thought was right and that's what matters. You may be the symbol of peace, but you're still only human, responded Naomasa as he stared at his tea. Near the Midoriya household, Midoriya was searching for his mother, only sticking to the rooftops to avoid detection. As Midoriya looked around, he saw his mother walking into his old home with a single bag of groceries in hand. I'm sorry, Mom. I wish I could come back, thought Midoriya as a single tear fell down his cheek. Midoriya always made time in the week to see his mom even if he couldn't talk to her. One day, Mom, you'll see me again, I promise, said Midoriya as he began to go back to his apartment. Now let's go over the plan. To kill All Might, said Shigaraki as he looked in Midoriya and Kurogiri's direction. Kill All Might? You sure about that, Shigaraki? Asked Midoriya as his eyes widened a bit. He wasn't informed about this in the last meeting. Midoriya knew All Might's strength was no joke and he may resent him, but wishing death upon another person was never his style. Sensei has prepared something incredible for the League, don't you worry, idiot, scowled Shigaraki as he began to scratch the palm of his hand. We will kill the symbol of peace tomorrow, without a doubt, said Shigaraki with a creepy smile. Shigaraki went over the plan with Kurogiri and Midoriya, telling them what their roles would be. So Deku, you will back up Kurogiri, got that? Said Shigaraki, annoyed. Sure, Shigaraki, I'll do my best, responded Midoriya in a deadpan voice as he turned towards Kurogiri. Let's do this, Kurogiri, said Midoriya as he looked at the misty figure. I'm pleased to have you, Deku, Kurogiri responded. All right, I'll see you all later, said Shigaraki as he went to his room, still scratching his hand. Kurogiri, does Shigaraki hate me? Midoriya asked the Black Mist. I believe he hates everyone, but at times he can be very docile, responded Kurogiri with a chuckle. I see. Well, good night, Kurogiri, said Midoriya as he bowed in respect to Kurogiri. To you as well, Kurogiri said as he bowed in return. At UA. All right then. First, said Aizawa as he was explaining the training, but before he could finish he was interrupted by a large black mist that began to appear behind him. Guess I'm a real villain now, thought Midoriya as he arranged his metal mask into place while stepping out of the mist along with Shigaraki, followed by a hulking monster with an exposed brain. What the hell is that, Shigaraki? Asked Midoriya, wary of the monster. It's called a Namu, just wait and see when it fights All Might, said Shigaraki as he let out a chuckle. A mass of low-ranking villains followed after. Aizawa quickly ran towards the mass of villains, taking them out swiftly. Today is going to be interesting, said Midoriya as he quickly turned the knob on his mask and began to record. Deku, are you ready? Said Kurogiri as he finished teleporting the rest of the villains. Midoriya nodded in his direction and they both were quickly on top of the students and Pro Hero 13. Midoriya stood calmly next to the big mist that loomed over the group. I won't let you through. Nice to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it seems rude, but we have invited ourselves into the home of heroes, UA High School, said Kurogiri as he stared down the group. We have come to have All Might take his last breath. I believe All Might should have been here. Was there a change in the schedule? Well, no matter. This is the part we are here to play, said Kurogiri. Midoriya recognized the red-haired boy as one of the top 10 entrance exam applicants. His name was Kirishima Ijiru. Bakugo and Kirishima dashed towards the dark mist, making a loud explosion in process. Did you consider that you'd get beaten by us before you could? Shouted Kirishima. Oh dear, that's right, even if you are students, you are excellent golden eggs, said Kurogiri as the dust cleared. But we have a golden egg ourselves and he shines brighter than all of you, said Kurogiri as Midoriya quickly dashed in front and kicked Kirishima right in the stomach, causing him to lose his breath and fall back into the group. In that instant, Midoriya grabbed Bakugo by his gauntlet, throwing him into the students. My job is to scatter you all and make your life a living hell, shouted Kurogiri as he engulfed and scattered everyone except 5 students and 1 teacher. Shit, we still have 6 people. Kuro and 13's quirk is dangerous. It's basically a black hole, shouted Midoriya as he stared at the group. Midoriya recognized a couple of faces from the entrance exam, but he didn't hold back against anyone. Tenya, you have to use your quirk and run and warn the other teachers, said 13 to the group as she turned to face Kurogiri and Deku. 13 activated her quirk and began to suck up Midoriya and Kurogiri. Midoriya quickly brought out his blade and sunk it into the floor so he could have something to hold on to. Kuro, open a portal in front of 13's finger and one aimed at 13's backside. 13 turned cold at the suggestion the masked villain made, but it was too late to react. Kurogiri quickly opened the portals and 13 nearly turned herself to dust. Everyone, that type of 6 villain is the most dangerous kind. Be careful, said 13 to the students as she pointed towards Midoriya and passed out. Excellent suggestion, Deku, said Kurogiri as he composed himself. Kurogiri, however, received a telepathic message from one of the villains scattered with the students. Kurogiri, we have a problem in the collapsed building section. Send hell, explained the villain before he was cut off. Damn, Deku, looks like you're going to have to back up some of our associates. I'll warp you there now. I can manage here on my own, Kurogiri explained as he opened a portal. Alright Kurogiri, I'm on it, responded Deku as he jumped through the portal. Midoriya was teleported to the collapsed zone. His objective was to help the villains with the 2 students present in the zone. Now where is? Asked Midoriya as he was interrupted by a large explosion in one of the buildings. A smile grew across Midoriya's face. He knew who he had to take care of. Midoriya reached the building and made his way to the room of the explosion. That mist guy is how these punks are getting around. Beat him and they will have nowhere to run. And I have a general idea of how to beat him, explained Bakugo to Kirishima as a camouflaged gecko villain tried to stab Bakugo, to which he dodged and slammed his head into the floor, followed with an explosion. I mean, if all they are sending is these idiots, we should be fine, Bakugo said as he stood up. Kirishima was going to speak up, but he was interrupted by a voice. Midoriya was greeted to multiple unconscious villains on the floor, some with extreme injuries. You know, for students this is guys need to hold back just a bit. However, what happens if you kill one of these guys? That's not very heroic, and that's coming from me. But to be fair, they were trying to kill you guys, so fair trade, said Midoriya as he looked at Kirishima and Bakugo. Bakugo was a bit taken back by the voice of the villain. It was oddly similar to Deku's. Bakugo quickly snapped out of his trance and let out a devilish smile, looking in Midoriya's direction. To be honest, I wanted to fight you, but that mist guy threw us over here, said Bakugo as he lit up some explosions, trying to intimidate the villain before him. Hey man, we should be careful, this guy seems tough, explained Kirishima, recalling the kick to the stomach he received not too long ago. Kirishima looked over to Bakugo, who wasn't paying attention. Shut up, let's just beat this guy to a bloody pulp, yelled Bakugo as he began his assault on Midoriya. Midoriya quickly saw through Bakugo's attack and remembered his notes on his fighting style. Right swing, thought Midoriya as he grabbed his arm and threw him on the floor as hard as he could. Bakugo lost his breath at the sheer impact of being thrown on the floor. Midoriya followed up quickly with a kick to the side of his stomach, causing the blonde boy to skid against floor and against a nearby wall. Don't forget about me, shouted Kirishima as he hardened his body and ran towards Midoriya. So slow, most likely due to his hardening quirk. He should have weak spots, however not everything can be hardened, said Midoriya to himself as he dodged Kirishima's tackle. Bakugo brought himself up, still coughing from the attack he had just received. Foo fucker, said Bakugo, shooting a glance to his gauntlet and at Midoriya. Kirishima ran towards Midoriya at full speed, hardening his body. Midoriya quickly grabbed Kirishima's arm, exposing a weak spot in his underarm, followed by a strong jab. Kirishima recoiled at the immense pain. Every quirk has a weakness, and every weakness can be exploited, said Midoriya as he looked at Bakugo, still coughing and catching his breath, and Kirishima, who was now holding his arm in pain. Look, believe it or not, I'm not here to kill you guys, so stay down, unless you want to leave this place with more than a couple bruises, said Midoriya as he looked at the students. Please come at me again, Kaken. You have to pay for what you did to me for all those years, thought Midoriya as he looked over at Bakugo. Like hell, you'll stay down. Bakugo and Kirishima responded as they both ran towards Midoriya. Bakugo ran towards Midoriya, making a small explosion, propelling himself upward and behind Midoriya, causing a smokescreen in his face. In that instant, Kirishima quickly followed up with a hardened punch to Midoriya's stomach. That was not good enough, unfortunately, Midoriya said with a slight cough. Midoriya quickly grabbed Bakugo's arm, which was pointed towards his back and ready to fire at full blast. Midoriya, however, placed Bakugo's hand right in Kirishima's face. You're sweating quite a bit, Bakugo. How strong do you think this blast is going to be? Asked Midoriya calmly as he stepped to the side. Bakugo's face went cold and looked towards Kirishima, who couldn't see in front of him due to Bakugo's smokescreen. Harden now, shouted Bakugo as a loud explosion shook the building. Kirishima went flying due to the explosion and his entire body slammed against the wall. Bakugo flew from the sheer force of his explosion and his back slammed against the wall. Bakugo's vision was blurry, but he looked in Kirishima's direction. Looking at his limp body, he grew cold at the thought that he may have killed a fellow student and his hero career was now over. That blast was the strongest he had ever produced, and it was fired point blank at his face. Midoriya walked towards Kirishima calmly and inspected him. Just a couple mean burns. The adrenaline got him to break his limit at the last second, said Midoriya as he looked at the red-haired boy who was unconscious. Midoriya began to walk away until he felt the sudden urge to help Kirishima and his burns. Fuck, what am I even doing? He's going to be fine, said Midoriya as he got out his healing ointment and placed it on his burn marks and bruises. Bakugo was extremely surprised to see a villain was helping his classmate. Deku, we need you at the front now, shouted Shigaraki into Midoriya's earpiece. Did I hear Deku? No, that nerd could never beat me, plus he's quirkless. This guy definitely has a quirk, I'm sure of it, Bakugo said in his mind. I'm on my way, responded Midoriya as he jumped out the shattered window. Hey, where do you think you're going, fucker? Shouted Bakugo as he jumped out the window and used his explosions to propel himself towards Midoriya, attempting to kick him in the head. Midoriya quickly blocked and grabbed his leg, throwing him away. Just give up, you have lost already. Go help your friend, he sure as hell needs it, shouted Midoriya so Bakugo could hear him. I never lose. That idiot was just getting in my way anyway, Bakugo shouted back, lifting up his gauntlet and aiming it towards Midoriya with a grin on his face. He has way too much confidence in that gauntlet, judging by its design, Midoriya was thinking when he was interrupted. Die scum, shouted Bakugo as he pulled the pin. A massive concentrated high-speed explosion came towards Midoriya. Shit, that's going to hurt, and the street is too narrow to dodge. I'll have to take it head on. I hope those improvements I made work, shouted Midoriya as he prepared himself and took the blast head on, only covering his face. How did you like that, fucker, said Bakugo as he held onto his now sore arm. Ouch, now that's dangerous. You could have killed me if I was just any other villain. No way. You, Bakugo choked up. Midoriya's costume held up to the explosion and only had a couple burn marks, but nothing too major. His hood, however, was completely burned off, exposing his green hair and green eyes. Shit, once the dust clears he's going to see me. I have to end this now, Midoriya thought as he put all his strength into his legs and dashed at Bakugo at incredible speed. Bakugo was looking at the dust, and for a split second he saw a green blur emerge and his vision became blurry. He had just gotten punched square in the jaw at full force. Fuck, I have to regroup, said Midoriya as he began to go towards Shigaraki's location. What's going on, Kurogiri? Asked Midoriya as he arrived at the scene. One of the students slipped from my grasp. He most likely is on his way to alert the other pros, explained Kurogiri to Midoriya. Is that Eraserhead on the floor? Midoriya asked, surprised to see the hero beaten to a bloody pulp. Towering above him was a Namo. It's game over, huh? If you weren't a warp gate, I'd crush you into pieces, said Shigaraki as he scratched his neck and began mumbling to himself. Midoriya realized two students in the water trying to watch in secret what was happening before them. What are they doing here? Do they want to die? Midoriya said to himself as he began walking towards the two students, pretending not to see them. Hey Kurogiri, I'm going to do a little recon, said Midoriya as he kept walking. Kurogiri nodded in confirmation and returned. Midoriya knew despite Shigaraki's appearance, his quirk and speed were dangerous. In the water, the green-haired girl Tsuyuasui and the grape-looking boy Minoru Mineta began to get nervous as Midoriya got closer and closer. Midoriya reached the edge of the water and turned his back, pretending not to see them both. You two, if you don't want to die here and now, I suggest you group with the rest of your classmates, Midoriya said, facing Shigaraki, who was still having a breakdown. Tsuyu was surprised at the villain's offer. Why help us? Why not kill us? Asked the green-haired girl, genuinely confused and afraid. Mineta was far too afraid to say anything. You're too young. and killing just isn't my thing. Now, leave, said Midoriya as he began to walk back towards Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Suyu quickly grabbed the Minta and swam back to the front of the dome. He seemed about our age. Why is he a villain? Why did he help us? The girl pondered as she glanced back to see the green-haired villain. We won't stand a chance against a dozen pros. So let's go kill some of his pride before we go, said Shigaraki as he let out a small chuckle. Shigaraki began to run towards the front of the dome with Namu eyes set on killing UA students. Kurogiri and Midoriya quickly followed behind. He's just going to leave Eraserhead. Fine by me, thought Midoriya as he looked at the group of students who were now all together, all except 3. Midoriya and his group arrived at the bottom of a set of stairs. Just above them was the group of students. Now then, but before Shigaraki could even finish, a large boom could be heard in the direction of the students. A large muscular man appeared from the smoke. It was All Might. All Might quickly dashed down the stairs and swiftly took out the few remaining low-rank villains. Ignoring Midoriya and his group, All Might ran towards Aizawa, quickly picking him up and returning him to the group of students to look over him. Midoriya couldn't help but let out a smile at the sight of All Might and his quirk. You have caused too much pain. 2 students are missing. Where are they? Yelled All Might at the group of 3 standing before him. I think I left them both in a ditch somewhere. Don't worry, they aren't dead, but they sure are in pain, said Midoriya coldly while looking at All Might straight in the eyes. You! All Might shouted as his blood grew cold at the sight of 2 students being near death and bloody. Shigaraki, however, let out a cracked and evil smile at Midoriya's comment to All Might. But before anything else could be said, All Might moved like sound, hitting Shigaraki and Kurogiri away. Midoriya, however, saw his attack and barely dodged by a hair. Namu, however, was idle as if he was turned off. Midoriya quickly backed up back into his group. What? He dodged. If he was able to keep up with me, I wonder in what state my students are in. And what quirk does he possess? All Might thought as he looked at the green-haired villain. I will bring you 3 to justice. It's my duty as the symbol of peace, All Might said as he dashed towards the group at high speed. Namu, said Shigaraki as the monster quickly stepped in front and looked at All Might, who was coming towards them. The plan was for Namu to restrain All Might so Kurogiri could use his mist portal to cut All Might in half, but Namu and All Might began to exchange blows, instantly causing massive shock waves and air pressure. Without students around, he can go all out, Midoriya thought as he held onto a nearby tree watching the fight unfold before him. Shigaraki, we aren't going to be able to get close to him anytime soon, shouted Midoriya as he looked over to Shigaraki. Shut up, I know. Namu won't lose, he was made to beat All Might, responded Shigaraki as he watched Namu begin to be pushed back. Made to defeat me, scoffed All Might as he began to punch Namu with even greater speed. Now villains, have you heard these words before? Go beyond plus ultra, yelled All Might triumphantly as he delivered a devastating blow to Namu, sending him flying out of the dome. In my prime I would have ended it in 5 punches. Now then villains, shall we end this? Well, what's wrong? Come and get me if you can, said All Might, putting on his most intimidating face as the dust settled around him. You're out of time, and that's the best bluff you got, thought Midoriya as he looked at All Might and to Shigaraki, who backed up in response to All Might's words. Midoriya knew All Might's time limit had already run out. Shigaraki, we have to retreat. If that student got away, it's only a matter of time. The rest of the pros get here and put us in the ground, explained Midoriya as he looked over to Shigaraki, who was scratching at his neck furiously. What? No, the final boss is right in front of us. We can still kill him, responded Shigaraki as he got ready to attack. Kurogiri, be prepared to retreat, said Midoriya. Kurogiri nodded in confirmation. In that moment, Shigaraki and Kurogiri attacked All Might, only to be interrupted by a bullet piercing Shigaraki's hand. They having a long-range pro, he can home in his bullets. You won't be able to finish the job. Let's go, Shigaraki, said Midoriya as he looked at the teachers at the front. GRR, fine. Kurogiri, let's get out of, Shigaraki said before he was interrupted by 2 bullets, each hitting one of his legs. Listen to me next time, said Midoriya as he began to be engulfed by mist along with Shigaraki. Shut up, Deku, Shigaraki yelled in response. And just like that, they warped out of UA. So his name is Deku, thought All Might as he watched the young villain warp away. Next time, the truth will shake the entire community of heroes. A group meeting is called to discuss the latest attack on UA. Back at the League of Villains hideout. GRRR. We lost. All Might isn't weak at all. You were wrong, Sensei, shouted Shigaraki at the monitor. Now, Shigaraki, it seems we have bitten more than we chew. Rise up, Shigaraki, and try again. It is not the end, said All for One calmly. Midoriya and Kurogiri were at the bar listening into the conversation. If it wasn't for Deku, we could have killed All Might. He held me back, scowled Shigaraki as he shot a glare at Midoriya. Midoriya in turn just stared back at Shigaraki with cold eyes. If it wasn't for me, we would all be in jail or dead, Shigaraki, Midoriya responded. Shigaraki, had it not been for Deku, you would now be in the hands of heroes. Deku is unlike other villains. He provides us a tactical advantage over the heroes with his quick thinking. Tamura. Deku, I thank you for accompanying Tamura. All for One explained. My pleasure, Sensei, Midoriya responded while bowing in respect to the monitor. Back at UA, 16, 17 and the other 2 are in the infirmary, said Naomasa, counting all the students outside the training building. The police had come to pick up and arrest the beaten villains and take them to jail. Detective Asui said, approaching Naomasa. Yes, responded Naomasa, looking up from his notebook. Is it okay for me to ask who was injured in the villain's assault? Asked Asui with a concerned look on her face. Well, both of Aizawa's arms were broken to splinters and he is suffering from overusing his quirk and may suffer from blurred vision. However, only time will tell. 13 is suffering from lacerations all over his back, and All Might only had a couple scratches. As for your classmates, however, Bakugo and Kirishima were just found in the dome unconscious not too long ago. Kirishima is suffering from minor injuries, however Bakugo had a broken jaw and is being treated by the school nurse. Naomasa explained to Asui and the rest of the class. Bakugo and Kirishima both lost. Aren't Bakugo and Kirishima crazy strong? Muttered some of the students, clearly surprised. Students, if you have any information to tell us, make sure to inform the principal. Be safe out there, Naomasa said as he walked over to talk to Nezu, the principal of UA. Principal, I know this may seem sudden, but if it's okay with you and the other teachers, I would like word with them all as soon as possible. It's regarding the attack, and someone who I think may be involved, Naomasa asked Nezu, showing the utmost respect to the principal. Of course, I would like all teachers present, however, as soon as Aizawa is out and about, I will arrange a meeting. Nezu responded. Thank you. Now I'll be taking my leave, principal. Have a good evening, Naomasa said as he bowed and went back to his squad car. 2 days later, all the teachers at UA were in a conference room. Thank you all for meeting me here. As you all know, UA and its students were attacked. From what we know now, the 3 main villains involved are working under an alias. Furthermore, we have searched all their names and quirks in every registry and came up with nothing. This means they are all underground villains, no names, no records. Shigaraki Tamura is who we believe to be in charge of the attack on UA. Kurogiri and Deku were his accomplices. Shigaraki Tamura possessed a disintegration while Kurogiri has a warp gate. He was the one who was able to get them into UA undetected. As for his final ally, I would like to discuss him last, Naomasa explained as he reviewed his notes before continuing. Naomasa explained the rest of the situation to the teachers while receiving their feedback on the situation. Now I mentioned Shigaraki Tamura's final associate, Deku. As far as we know, we don't know what quirk he possesses at this moment, Naomasa said, looking around the room. All Might was interested in this villain in particular since he was able to keep up with his speed and was the one responsible for hurting 2 of his students. I recently spoke to multiple students on this particular villain, and I can now say for certain he was the one responsible for Bakugo and Kirishima's injuries, Naomasa explained. So this is the villain who beat one of our top students. He seems very dangerous indeed. I am extremely glad Bakugo and Kirishima did not receive fatal injuries. However, what puzzles me is why this villain didn't kill our students, said Nezu, looking over to Naomasa. I may have an idea, principal. I was assigned an investigation regarding the hero killer and can now say the villain who was working alongside Stain is the same villain. Stain, as we all know, is a murderer with a crusade to purge fake heroes. Stain went silent, however, for nearly a year for no apparent reason. However, when he reappeared, he now had sidekick. In a twist of events, Stain's sidekick showed no interest in murder. Deku, his sidekick, even held Stain back from finishing his victims during his time with him. I also received a statement from the student Tsuyu Asui regarding this particular villain, stating he advised and allowed her to escape before being killed by Shigaraki Tamura. Also mentioned the villain sounded fairly young. Right now I have one theory, but it is too early to say at this moment. However, I can say for certain he is the same age as the students in Class 1A. Naomasa explained to the heroes. Such a shame seeing someone so young turn into villain, said Nezu sadly as he looked down at his paws. So young, thought All Might as he clenched his fist in frustration. He allowed students to escape. He doesn't murder. He doesn't sound much like a real villain to me, said Vlad King. With the right push, I believe he can become a hero, said Nezu. Yes, but even so he is still a villain, so do not hesitate to bring him to justice, said Naomasa as he collected his notes. That was all I wanted to talk about at this time. Thank you all for your time, Naomasa concluded as he bowed to the heroes. It's still too early to assume Deku and Midoriya are the same person, but for now I'll collect more evidence. I promise I'm going to bring you your son, ma'am, Naomasa thought as he walked to his car. In Class 1A, UAS Sports Festival is approaching. This is your chance to show the world and top pros what you are made of. Show them what you got. This is a big step into becoming a hero, said Aizawa, who looked much like a mummy with all his bandages. All of Class 1A began to radiate energy. I'm pumped, shouted Kirishima. Even after what just happened, I'm ready for the future, responded Zero quickly. Bakugo was excited for the festival, however he was extremely angry at himself for losing to a villain. If I ever see that guy again, I'm going to kill him, Bakugo said in his head as he broke his pencil in his hand. In Midoriya's apartment, I'm kinda anxious for my next assignment. Being out in the field is better than being holed up or hiding in the shadows, said Midoriya out loud as he arranged all his quirk files. Midoriya had many cabinets full of data on heroes and villains alike, each explaining a quirk's uses, improvements, and weaknesses. Deku, my boy, good afternoon. I have an assignment for you, said All For One as the monitor mounted on the wall switched on. Ah, sensei, it's always a pleasure, said Midoriya as he bowed towards the monitor. Likewise, Deku. Now, as for your assignment, I'm going to have you attend the UA Sports Festival and record some quirks for the league, said All For One looking towards Midoriya. I understand, sensei, I'll do my best, responded Midoriya nodding in confirmation. One more thing, Deku. I'm going to have Kurogiri cut your hair and dye it black. We can't have you being spotted after what happened at UA, explained All For One. That's not a problem. Have a good day, sensei, replied Midoriya as the monitor switched off. I hope the assignment goes smoothly, sighed Midoriya as he fell on his back on his bed. At the UA Sports Festival, Midoriya now had short black hair and was wearing his blue contacts along with a normal red sweater. The festival seems very lively. Maybe I could get a bite to eat while I find my way to my seat, thought Midoriya as he dodged the masses and found his way to the stadium. This one of the best seats. Guess sensei isn't short of money, said Midoriya as he looked over to his seat. All eyes are on Class 1A for surviving the league's attack. On one hand, they have more pros watching them, and on the other, everyone will call out every single mistake. I don't know why they handed everyone raffle tickets. They never did this before. Doesn't matter, I'm not here to have fun. Now then, show me your quirks, said Midoriya as he pulled out his notebook and a voice recorder. Midnight took the stand and began to speak. Quite the hero they have. People like you make heroes look bad, Midnight, said Midoriya, giving off an annoyed face. And your student representative is from Class 1A, Katsuki Bakugo, said Midnight as Bakugo slowly took the stage. The athlete's oath. Make no mistake, I'm going to crush you all and take first. Make yourself good stepping stones for me, said Bakugo as he walked off the stage with an angry expression. That's Kachin, I guess, said Midoriya as he looked down at all the students. The festival took place and every student with a noteworthy quirk was recorded by Midoriya. All the festival finals took place and ended with Bakugo taking first place. Midoriya made sure to record the entire festival on his TV just in case. So Kachin won, huh? Guess that Todoroki hates his left side. Probably has something to do with his father Endeavor, murmured Midoriya to himself, taking down more notes on the finalists. The medals were soon given out to the top 3, but before the festival could finish, Midnight spoke up. Everyone, if you look at your raffle ticket, we will now reveal the winner, said Midnight as she began to read off the winning number. Maybe they will give out some big prize, thought Midoriya as he looked at his ticket. 5F30C4, if you have this ticket, please come on down center stage, said Midnight. 5PTO90, huh? Guess I lost, said Midoriya as he got up from his seat and began to walk down the stairs to the exit. It seems as if 5F30C4 did not show up. The next number is 5PTO90, please, if you have this number, come on down, said Midnight loudly. Midoriya ears piped up at the sound of his number being called. Well, what do you know, said Midoriya as he walked up to the security and showed them his ticket. The festival security escorted him to the center stage. Now the prize. The raffle winner gets a photo with Class 1A, said Midnight as she signaled Midoriya over. Shit, why can't it be a normal prize like a stupid plushie or food? Thought I wish it was food, Midoriya cursed to himself, walking to Midnight. Now then, what's your name? And how old are you? Asked Midnight. My name is Haru Tanaka, and I'm 15, said Midoriya, masking his voice. Haru, are you ready for your photo with Class 1A? Said Midnight. Sure, said Midoriya, standing at the center of the class. All of Class 1A smiled for the photo at the exception of a select few. The photographer quickly took the photo and handed a copy to Midoriya. Thanks, said Midoriya as he grabbed the picture and walked to the exit without saying another word. Midoriya couldn't lie to himself. A part of him still wanted to be a hero and have a normal life. Don't look back, Midoriya, that isn't your path anymore, said Midoriya to himself as he walked back to his apartment. Purge. I must purge all the fake heroes, said Stain as he looked over his latest victim, the pro hero Ingenium. Midoriya receives a call from his old mentor, but what could he possibly want? All For One has an offer for Midoriya, but what could it be? Midoriya was laying on his bed, looking at the photo he took with Class 1A. Midoriya never realized it until now, but his entire demeanor had changed. He was no longer the happy-go-lucky kid, with eyes filled with hope and wonder. Midoriya now had cold fish eyes and a rather bland expression. The only time Midoriya ever got a genuine smile was when he was in a good fight or doing quirk analysis. Why do I still have this photo? Said Midoriya as he took another glance at the photo in his hand. He crumbled up the photo and put it in the trash. DEKU, shouted Shigaraki into the intercom that was connected to Midoriya's room. Yeah, responded Midoriya. Get your ass to the bar now, Shigaraki shouted once more and left the intercom. Guess I better go, said Midoriya as he made his way to the league's main hideout. Shigaraki and Kurogiri were wounded, much to Midoriya's surprise. Midoriya made his way back to the bar to help up Kurogiri, who was barely able to stand. Kurogiri, what happened? Midoriya questioned Kurogiri as he moved him to a bar stool. We tried to recruit Stain, and we were a little overwhelmed, said Kurogiri as he looked in Shigaraki's direction. Grr, the bastard cut my arm. Hey Deku, Stain trained you right? Shigaraki asked angrily as he made his way to a table. Yeah, he trained me, so what? Responded Midoriya as he began to subtly move his hand to his holstered blade. Before Shigaraki could say anything, a devilish smile spread across his face. I want you to go to Hasu Deku. Stain said he might join our group if our views align, so go to him and convince him, explained Shigaraki as he tried to hide his smile. Sure, but I'm not sure if even I'll be able to convince him, responded Midoriya. Midoriya quickly made his way back to his apartment to change into his costume. Midoriya knew very well Stain would never join the league no matter what he told him. Regardless, Midoriya did want to see his old mentor and get some fresh air. After putting on his costume, Midoriya quickly returned to the bar where Kurogiri was waiting to teleport him. Kurogiri, I'm ready, said Midoriya as he made last-minute checks to his costume. Very well, Deku, responded Kurogiri as he opened up a mist portal and dropped Deku off on top of a building. Thank you, said Midoriya as he looked over the city. Good luck, Kurogiri responded as he teleported back to the league's hideout. Hey, I get to kill two birds with one stone, chuckled Shigaraki as he eyed the three gnomes before him. Midoriya was traversing rooftops looking for Stain when he received a phone call from an unlisted number. Hello, Midoriya answered. Hey kid, it's me, responded Stain. Midoriya was caught by surprise to hear his old mentor's voice again. It had been a couple months since he last heard from him. Stain, why are you calling me? Asked Midoriya, pulling the phone a bit closer to his face. Listen, I think I need your help with this guy I'm chasing. Plus, I know you are in Hasu looking for me, explained Stain. Midoriya knew Stain wouldn't change his mind, but he did want to catch up with his old teacher. Send me your location. I'll be right over, said Midoriya as he received a text with Stain's current location. Be quick, I just cornered him into an alley, said Stain as he hung up the call. What does Stain need my help with? It can't be some random hero, pondered Midoriya as he made his way to the location given to him. Midoriya soon reached his destination only to find Stain was in a heated battle with pro-hero Native. Native was doing his best dodging Stain and his attacks, but it wasn't enough. Stain quickly found an opening and quickly threw a knife at Native's right arm, causing him to recoil in pain. Stain dashed toward the hero, pulling the knife out of his arm, and then proceeded to lick the blood off the Stain knife, activating his quirk. Midoriya, out of respect for his mentor and the hero, decided not to interfere with the fight. I don't think you needed my help with this one, said Midoriya as he stepped over the defeated hero. He was paralyzed due to Stain's quirk. Stain ignored Midoriya's words and made his way towards the downed hero. Midoriya knew immediately the current mental state Stain was in at the moment. Stain, don't do this. Not now, said Midoriya as he grabbed Stain's arm. Move, demanded Stain as he swung his arm towards Midoriya. Midoriya was expecting retaliation from his mentor, so he was able to dodge. But before Midoriya or Stain could make another move, they were interrupted. Hero killer, shouted the knight, followed with a kick which connected with Stain's left arm. Stain quickly swung his katana towards the knight's face, knocking off his mask and exposing his face. Underneath the mask, revealed Tenya Ida, a student at UA. A kid, get out of here, this is no place for children, demanded Stain as he looked towards the assailant. Tenya Ida, he's a student at UA and Ingenium's brother, said Midoriya to Stain as he looked in Tenya's direction. Hero killer Stain, I've been pursuing you. I am, said Tenya before he was interrupted by Stain. Stain lifted his blade directly up to the student's face. Your eyes, you're out for revenge, aren't you? Choose your next words carefully, boy. Despite your age, I won't hesitate to kill you, said Stain menacingly. I am the younger brother of the hero you attacked, brother to the most amazing hero among heroes. I've come to stop you in my brother's stead, so remember this name with the little time you have left, villain. Ingenium, the hero who will take you down, shouted Tenya as he directed a kick towards Stain. Stain jumped up in the air and kicked Tenya in his arm with his spiked boots, causing him to recoil from the pain. Stain lifted up his right leg and kicked Tenya's head into the concrete, pinning him down and stabbing his arm in the process. So weak, you and your brother, said Stain as he looked over the defeated student's body. Shut up. The damage you did means he will probably be crippled for the rest of his life. He was a great hero. He was my hero. He inspired my dreams. They'll kill you for what you did, shouted Tenya as he laid on the floor bleeding. Idiot, are you so blinded by your revenge you can't understand the situation you're in, Tenya? Said Midoriya as he took a step forward to the student. Before the student could respond, Midoriya began to speak. Did you even bother to think if you could save the hero before you? This man is about to be killed and you are so wrapped in your own quest for vengeance, you've forgotten what it means to truly be a hero. You're wielding your power for your own sake. explained Midoriya as he looked down on the student. Tenya was speechless, his eyes widened by hooded villain's words. Selfishness is furthest thing from a hero, Tenya, said Midoriya, taking another step closer to the student. He crippled my brother, clamored Tenya, processing the villain's words. Would your brother approve of your actions? Stop thinking about yourself for a moment and consider what your brother would want, Midoriya continued. Well said, Deku, Stain interrupted Ingenium. Consider yourself a sacrifice for a better society, said Stain, oozing his murderous intent. Stain slowly lifted his katana over the boy's head. Stain, wait. You can't, he's just a kid, exclaimed Midoriya as he reached for Stain's katana. Midoriya wasn't close enough to stop Stain. Shit, I'm not going to be able to stop him. He's going to die, he thought to himself before he was interrupted by a sudden pain in his chest. A winged Namu had slammed Midoriya and Stain into the side of the alley. "Grrtomura," exclaimed Stain as he picked himself up. "Oh, guess Nomus really are brain-dead," said Midoriya as he rubbed the back of his neck. The winged Namu, however, quickly resumed its assault and swooped down using its bird-like feet to grab a hold of Midoriya. Midoriya instantly pulled out his blade and stabbed the winged beast in the chest. Namu, however, did not react to the pain and did a 180 in midair and threw Midoriya against a dumpster. Tonight I will get rid of you both. Deku, Stain, you both annoy me so much, cackled Shigaraki as he watched his Namu fight Midoriya and Stain. Kurogiri personally liked Midoriya, but he had no other choice than to sit and watch. Stain, make sure to keep these guys paralyzed. After that, lend me a hand, said Midoriya, dodging the Namu's claws. Midoriya couldn't get too close to the Namu without being blown away by the air pressure made by his wings. But he had an idea. My knife is still stuck in its chest. If I can just grab it and hand it to Stain, Midoriya said aloud as he glanced at the blade stuck in the Namu's chest. Stain's timing couldn't have been more perfect as he jumped up and clipped the Namu's right wing with his katana. The Namu began to plummet to the ground, its right wing now clipped. Midoriya saw his chance and jumped towards the beast, retrieving his knife from its chest. "Stain, catch!" shouted Midoriya as he threw the bloodstained knife to his mentor. "You lose," said Stain as he licked the blade. The Namu fell to the floor, paralyzed by Stain's quirk. Criminals who wave their power idly. Fake heroes consumed by wealth and self-interest. I must purge them from society, said Stain as he walked over to the downed beast, stabbing its exposed brain, killing it instantly. Why do you sent anything go my way? Everyone is a cheater. They cheated. That brat Deku and Stain, shouted Shigaraki angrily as scratched at his neck furiously. Shall I take us home, Shigaraki? Kurogiri asked. Yeah, take me back. I'm sick of these cheaters, responded Shigaraki, still clawing at his neck. Kurogiri opened a warp gate and teleported back to the League of Villains base. Stain began to walk over to Tenya and Native, who were still under the effects of his quirk. Shit, he's in his bloodlust mode again. I have to get these guys out of here before he kills them, Midoriya said to himself. Midoriya couldn't save both of them, and he wasn't sure how well he would hold up against Stain in his bloodlust state. He had to choose, Tenya, Ida, or Native. Shit, I'm sorry it had to come to this. He's just a kid. I can't let someone die so young, said Midoriya as he lifted Tenya onto his shoulder. It's okay. I'm okay with this. I just hope he turns into a great hero someday, said Native, closing his eyes. No, this isn't what I wanted, choked Tenya, looking over to Native, who was prepared for death. Your selfishness caused this, Tenya, Ada. Your personal grudge is going to cost Native's life. Learn from this and become a better hero, said Midoriya as he began to walk Tenya out of the alley. No, I don't want this. Take me instead, shouted Tenya as he burst out in tears. Kava, I like that look in your eye, Ingenium. It's the look of self-sacrifice, the face of a hero. Today and only today will I spare you both. However, I must do one thing, said Stain as he began to walk towards Tenya and Midoriya. Midoriya sighed in relief, but he knew all too well what Stain was about to do. Flashback. You will be marked Midoriya, and you will spread my name, said Stain as he looked over to Midoriya. Now then, show me your chest, demanded Stain. Midoriya took off his shirt and exposed his scar-filled chest. The left side of his chest, right above his heart, was devoid of all scars. Stain raised the knife and carved the letters HK onto Midoriya's chest. Midoriya was used to the pain, but it still hurt. Any normal person would scream in pain. Blood dripped down onto the cold concrete floor. Flashback end. Now then, are you prepared, Ingenium? Said Stain as he looked over to the student, knife in hand. Yes, I am prepared to do anything, said Tenya nervously. Deku, remove his armor and expose his back, demanded Stain as he looked over to Midoriya. Midoriya nodded and removed Tenya's armor and shirt. Remember this day, Ingenium, the day you were reformed into a true hero by the hero killer Stain, shouted Stain as he pressed his blade against Tenya's back. Tenya was terrified and nervous, but he knew this was the only way out. Don't worry, Ingenium, you'll be all right, I promise, Midoriya said softly, taking off his hood and metal mask, exposing his softened face. Tenya calmed down at the sight of Midoriya's face and words. Stain, without warning, began to carve a huge S onto Tenya's back. Tenya began to scream in agony as the blade began cutting his back. Tenya soon passed out after 15 seconds due to the pain. Native only watched in horror as a 15-year-old cried in agony in front of him. This may have been a bit overboard, Stain, said Midoriya as he looked at the huge S on the teen's back. Midoriya wiped the blood and applied his advanced ointment to the cut. Stain, we should get out of here. The police will be here any minute now, said Midoriya as he struggled to put Tenya's shirt back on. Deku, my student until we meet again, said Stain as he parkoured his way up the building and disappeared. Make sure nothing happens to him, Native, said Midoriya as he put on his metal face mask and hood. Midoriya quickly made his way up the building and left just before the police arrived. The next morning, Midoriya was organizing his files when the monitor mounted on his wall turned on. Deku, I need to speak to you in private. Please come to this address, said All for One. The monitor turned off, leaving Midoriya confused. That was weird, I wonder what Sensei wants, Midoriya said as he received a text with an address from an unlisted number. I guess I better go right away, said Midoriya as he walked out of his apartment. 1 hour later, Midoriya reached the location. It was an abandoned warehouse in Hasu. Guess this is it, said Midoriya as he made his way inside the warehouse. The warehouse was dimly lit, but Midoriya could make out multiple tubes, each occupied by a Namu. Deku, I'm glad you're here, said All for One sitting at a table. He was connected to multiple life support devices. Sensei, Midoriya said, bowing in respect to the man. Likewise, Deku, please sit, said All for One. Midoriya took a seat across from him. You have pushed this group of ours to new heights, and for that I thank you. I'm sure you are informed in the capabilities of my quirk, so I'll skip the details. As a gift from me to you, I will grant you any quirk you desire, explained All for One. Midoriya was surprised at the offer. He could have any quirk he wanted, his lifelong dream to be like everyone else. However, Midoriya's thoughts quickly turned sour as he remembered all the bullying, neglect, pain, and suffering everyone put him through. Sensei, I'm honored, but I can't accept this gift. If I accept this power, I will succumb to the society that abused and neglected me, explained Midoriya. I see. That is admirable, Deku, but I must gift you with something, said All for One firmly. Midoriya was at a crossroads. He didn't want anything in particular. In fact, he wanted to visit his mother, but at this moment in time it was impossible. Wait, there may be something, said Midoriya, looking over at the Namus. At the hospital, Ida was being treated by the nurses when 2 men walked into the room. Tenya, Ida, I am Kenji Tsuragami, and this is Naomasa Tsukachi. We have some questions for you, said Kenji as he closed the door behind him. Of course, responded Tenya. I won't beat around the bush, Tenya. This is about the hero killer and what happened that night, said Naomasa. I'll do anything to aid you officers. Ask away, said Tenya firmly. Thank you, Tenya. Now why did you pursue the hero killer? Naomasa asked. I was seeking revenge for my brother Ingenium. Enraged by my brother's condition, I wanted to make the hero killer pay for what he did. I was so blinded by vengeance, I didn't realize I was becoming less and less of a hero, explained Tenya. Naomasa began to write down everything in his notepad. What you did was reckless and foolish, but I'm glad you're alive. One more question, Tenya. Why did the hero killer let you live? Asked Naomasa, looking directly at the student. He wanted to kill me at first, but his ally stepped in and began to move my body away from the hero killer. Stain was prepared to kill Native in my place. I begged him to take me instead, and he made a deal with me, said Tenya, cringing at the thought of Stain. An ally, you say? What deal did he propose? Asked Naomasa. His ally was no older than 15. I know because he took off his mask and hood to show me his face. He had short black hair and green eyes, explained Tenya, looking over at his bandaged arm. Naomasa ears perked up at the sound of green eyes, but he needed to make sure. Tenya, can you recall the name of Stain's ally? And please tell us the deal you made with Stain, said Naomasa. Tenya shuddered at the thought of his scar. The deal was he could carve this into my body, said Tenya as he took off his shirt and revealed his back. A large scar could be seen. A giant letter S. Naomasa and Kenji were both caught off guard at the size of the scar. It looked painful. As for his ally, his name is Deku, and he saved my life and steered me back into the path of a hero, Tenya explained. Thank you, Tenya. That was all the questions we had, said Naomasa as he made his way into the hallway. Kenji quickly followed after. Flashback. Ding dong. Mom, it's Detective Naomasa. I have some questions to ask you, said Naomasa. The door opened slowly to reveal Inko Midoriya. She seemed to have slimmed down a bit and looked a bit pale. Detective, please come in. Some tea? Asked Inko as she signaled Naomasa inside. No thank you, Mom. I have coffee, said Naomasa, hanging his hat at the entrance. I hate seeing people like this, said Naomasa to himself as he walked into her house. Naomasa began to update Inko on Midoriya's case and any leads they may have on her son and his disappearance. Well, ma'am, that's all I have at the moment, said Naomasa as he retrieved his hat from the entrance. Thank you so much, detective. Please find my baby, said Inko as a single tear rolled off her cheek. Naomasa simply smiled and nodded. But before he could leave, one last question arose in his head. Mom, before I go, does the name Deku mean anything to you? Asked Naomasa. Inko flinched at the name. She knew Deku was the nickname Bakugo gave Midoriya to tease him. Inko insisted in intervening, but Midoriya would always put on a smile and say everything was all right. Yes, it's the nickname Bakugo gave Midoriya to tease him. It means someone who can't do anything, said Inko, tearing up. I see. I swear I'll find your son, said Naomasa. Flashback end. So Deku is Midoriya, huh? I kept my promise. I found your son. I found Midoriya, said Naomasa, looking at a photo of Midoriya and the hooded villain Deku, somewhere in Hasu. So who's on the list, Kirigiri? Asked Midoriya. A man named Dabai. He's a male mid-20s, I'd say. He possesses a pyrokinetic quirk, explained Kirigiri as he handed Midoriya a photo of Dabai. With a face like that, he will be easy to find. Did he mention where we will be meeting him? Asked Midoriya, scanning the area for Dabai. He said in an alleyway near the train station, responded Kirigiri. Midoriya and Kirigiri soon made their way to the alleyway. It was a dark and damp alley full of trash. He should be here, Kirigiri said, looking down the alley. He is there. Come on out, Dabai, and put those flames out, Midoriya said, firmly standing his ground. Dabai slowly appeared out of the darkness with both his hands up. You got me, oh League of Villains, said Dabai. So Dabai, are you willing to join the league? Asked Kirigiri. If our ideals meet, maybe I'll join, Dabai responded. What exactly are your ideals, Dabai? What drives you? Midoriya asked. I follow the hero killer's mission to rid the world of fake heroes, replied Dabai. I see. Well, Stain himself trained me and taught me all I know. I too believe the term hero has lost its purpose, explained Midoriya. Stain trained you. Wait, you're the Deku. I saw your fight with Captain Celebrity on the internet. A lot of people would kill to be trained by Stain, Dabai said. Yes, Stain trained me, and Deku is my villain name. Now what is your decision, Dabai? Asked Midoriya. I want to meet your boss first. If we see eye to eye, I'll join, responded Dabai. Excellent. However, if you do not mind, we have 2 more stops to make, explained Kirigiri, opening up a portal. That's fine, said Dabai as he stepped through the portal. Who's next? Asked Midoriya. Kenji Hikishi. She goes by Magni. Brutal and is accused of murder, said Kirigiri. She sounds fun, said Midoriya, showing his disinterest. Midoriya, Dabai, and Kirigiri soon teleported to their desired location. A large figure could be seen beating down a man in the distance. Kirigiri approached the large figure cautiously. Excuse me, but could you be Magni by any chance? Kirigiri asked the large woman. Yeah, what's it to you? Responded Magni, turning to the group of 3. We are the League of Villains, and said Midoriya before he was interrupted by Magni. Say no more, I'm in, said Magni. Oh, may I ask why you want to join? Asked Midoriya. I want to join the league so I can be free to live the life I choose, responded Magni, cleaning her blood-stained hands on her shirt. I see. Well, that is not a problem. The league will provide you with that and much more. Now then, please follow us through the portal, said Kirigiri as he opened the portal, allowing Magni and Dabai to step through. That was easier than I thought. So who's left, Kirigiri? Asked Midoriya. We only have one left, Himiko Toga. She has a transformation quirk and appears to be fairly young, explained Kirigiri, handing a photo over to Midoriya. So where do we meet her? Asked Midoriya. On the rooftop of a high school. It is currently 5 p.m. so we needn't worry about the staff, explained Kirigiri. Okay, but before we go I need to do something, said Midoriya as he made his way to the man Magni was beating up. The man was unconscious, but his wounds seemed serious. There is no reason for you to die here, said Midoriya as he took out his healing balm and began to clean and treat the man's wounds. Alright, let's go, Kirigiri. I'm done here, said Midoriya as he walked towards the portal. Kirigiri simply nodded in confirmation, and they disappeared into thin air. Why are we at a high school? Asked Dabai, looking over to Midoriya and Kirigiri. We were told to meet someone at this rooftop, said Midoriya, looking around. The rooftops was fairly large and had many bushes scattered throughout the roof. Yes, she should be here, said Kirigiri. She concealed her presence. Smart, I can't even sense her. I'll need to use it. Mental state to detect this girl. Flashback to combat training. Today I'm going to start teaching you a special technique, Midoriya. This technique will enhance your mind and body to react 15x faster than the average person, explained Stain as he gestured Midoriya to sit across from him. That sounds impossible, Stain. How could you? Asked Midoriya before he was interrupted by Stain. Shut up and learn, Stain demanded. Midoriya quickly shut his mouth and gave his full attention to Stain. Now, breath in and out slowly. Feel the air enter and exit your body, the particles in the air touching our bodies, Stain explained. Midoriya did as he was told and was amazed. He could feel every single thing throughout his body. He could hear everything, his heart and Stain's. Tapping into your senses is not easy. In time you will be able to do incredible things, kid, but when you do tap into it, it's a feeling like no other. Stain explained. 3 weeks later. Remember what I taught you? You ready? Stain asked Midoriya. Yes, replied Midoriya. Midoriya began to slow down his breathing, allowing his body to feel and hear everything around him. Now, shouted Stain as he threw his knife straight towards Midoriya's face. Midoriya quickly opened his eyes and finally saw what Stain was talking about. The knife was moving in slow motion. Midoriya moved his face to the side as to dodge the knife. The knife quickly zipped by Midoriya's face. Stain and Midoriya smiled. Good stuff, kid. However, don't push it. You can only hold it for so long, and it has its drawbacks. While in this state, your attacks will be weak as hell, so I advise you don't attack. In time, you will be able to hold the mental state for at least 25 minutes, explained Stain. Is there any more techniques I should know about, Stain? Asked Midoriya. Well, I never said there was just one mental state. I can tap into vigilance and slaughter, Stain explained to his student. Slaughter, that one sounds nice, said Midoriya with a chuckle. It's basically bloodlust turned up to 11. I doubt you will ever use it, however. For now, just focus on the one you know now, kid, Stain said, tossing Midoriya a notebook full of research on mental state. Flashback end. Midoriya closed his eyes and began to feel everything around him. There you are, Midoriya said aloud as he quickly turned around to grab a petite blonde girl by her wrist, throwing her away from him. Magni and Dabai were impressed at Midoriya's reaction speed and awareness. You're cute, I'm Toga, said Toga as she dashed towards Midoriya, knife in hand. Great, a crazy one, said Midoriya as he dodged the knife. Midoriya swiftly got behind Toga, taking the knife out of her hand and positioned the knife next to her neck. That's enough, you lost, said Midoriya. Guess Stain really did train you. I can see some of his moves in you, said Dabai. This kid was trained by the hero killer, Magni added. Yes, that is correct, Kirigiri confirmed. Toga began to blush uncontrollably, and her face went bright red. Ah, Stainy, you trained with Stainy. I want to see his blood. I want to be like him, Toga said manically. Midoriya was confused and uneasy. The girl seemed mentally unstable. You know, I really like blood, said Toga. Toga slowly caressed Midoriya's hand which held the knife. The warmth, the taste, said Toga as she began to press the knife against her throat and began to cut across slowly. What the fuck is she doing? Midoriya thought as he let go of the knife. I want to see your blood, shouted Toga as she grabbed the knife and stabbed Midoriya in the leg. Midoriya didn't flinch or react to the pain. Instead, he brought Toga towards him and punched her square in the jaw, knocking her out cold. Not as smooth as I wanted it to go, but we got the job done, said Midoriya, looking over to the unconscious girl. Kinda, Midoriya said, shrugging his shoulders. Forgive me, Deku. I could not intervene. You were much too close to Toga for me to open a portal, explained Kirigiri. No, it's fine, Kirigiri. Let's just take them back to the hideout, said Midoriya, pulling the knife out of his leg. Magni and Dabai were stunned and impressed. Someone so young possessed such fighting ability and will. Kirigiri opened a portal back to the League hideout. If you all would please step through the portal, Shigaraki Tamura will be awaiting our arrival, said Kirigiri. Midoriya lifted Toga onto his shoulder and walked through the portal, followed by Dabai and Magni. Back at the League of Villains hideout. We have returned with the new recruits, Shigaraki Tamura said Kirigiri. About time, said Kirigiri as he finished stacking his house of cards. Tamura turned to look at the group of recruits and Deku. He couldn't help but smile at the sight of Deku injured. Looks like the blondie is coming around, said Dabai as he signaled over to Toga, who was regaining consciousness. Alright, it was nice meeting you all, but I've done my part here. Sorry for making a mess on the floor, Kirigiri, said Midoriya as he began to make his way to his apartment. It's no problem, Deku, said Kirigiri as he mopped the blood off the floor. In Midoriya's apartment, Midoriya was putting on the final stitch in his leg. What a day. At least Dabai seemed reasonable, said Midoriya as he put his medical supplies away. Back at UA, you're all going to summer camp, Aizawa announced. Those who failed the practical exam. This camp is for you, Aizawa explained as he eyed 5 students in particular. Well, regardless, I'm glad everyone will be able to go, Onjiro added. Class 1A quickly began to talk about supplies and clothing. Tenya was unusually ecstatic. You're awfully energetic, Tenya said, Ochako walking over to Tenya. Yes, we are heroes after all, responded Tenya energetically. I know, we should all go shopping tomorrow, suggested Toru happily. All of Class 1A agreed to meet the next day at the mall and buy whatever they needed for camp together. At the Midoriya household, 9 p.m., Inko was cleaning her dish when she heard a knock at her door. Who could it be at this hour? Inko asked herself as she made her way to the door. Inko slowly opened the door to reveal Naomasa. Good evening, ma'am. May I come in? Asked Naomasa. Of course, detective. Please make yourself at home, responded Inko, quickly opening the door for him. You may want to sit down for this, said Naomasa, taking off his shoes and hanging his coat. Inko was afraid of the news she was about to receive, but she proceeded to sit at her couch, preparing for the worst. Mom, said Naomasa. Here it comes, said Inko to herself, closing her eyes tightly. I found Midoriya. I found your son, said Naomasa. Huh, said Inko, shocked at Naomasa's words. Yes, you heard me right. I found Midoriya and he's alive and well, said Naomasa, handing a photo of Midoriya. You found Izuku. You found my baby, cried Inko as she got up from the couch and fell to her knees. Nam, are you okay? Asked Naomasa, getting up from his seat. I'm fine, I'm just so happy. But why does he look so different? His hair and his whole demeanor are different, said Inko, looking at the photo of Midoriya. About that, Midoriya unfortunately has become a villain, explained Naomasa. A villain? But Midoriya was obsessed with heroes. He would never become a villain, responded Inko. Midoriya was missing for a year. People can change, said Naomasa. My baby a villain? It's all so much, choked Inko, picking up a framed photo of Midoriya. He was smiling and his eyes were full of happiness then. The photo of him now, however, told a different story. Midoriya is a villain, yes, however, he has not committed any major crimes. In fact, he has done more good than harm, Naomasa replied, showing Inko her son's criminal record. Izuku always wanted to help anyone in need. I'm glad that side of him hasn't changed, Inko sighed in relief. Although Midoriya hasn't done any major offenses, he's still a villain and we will bring him to justice, said Naomasa firmly. I understand, Inko replied. The next day. Good morning, Kurogiri, Deku greeted as he took a seat at the bar. Good morning, Deku, Kurogiri replied, serving Midoriya his usual breakfast. Deku, I forgot to mention, Shigaraki wanted to see you. He said to meet him at the Kiyashi Ward Mall later today, Kurogiri said as he shined a shot glass with a piece of cloth. What does he want now? Asked Midoriya as he finished his breakfast. I'm not sure myself. However, the meeting yesterday with the two recruits nearly ended in bloodshed. That might be the reason, Kurogiri responded, picking up Midoriya's plate. I see. Thanks for the breakfast, Kurogiri. I'll be heading out now, said Midoriya as he got up from the bar stool. My pleasure, Deku. Be wary of Kurogiri. He left quite agitated earlier. You know how irrational he can be when things don't go his way, Kurogiri stated, setting down the glass. I'm always on guard, Kurogiri, replied Midoriya, walking out the door. Always, said Midoriya as he made his way to the train station. At Kiyashi Ward Mall. Alright, I have to blend in, said Midoriya as he made his way into the mall. Midoriya changed his entire demeanor the moment he entered the mall. He changed his usual bored expression to a happy-go-lucky teen out shopping on a weekend. Alright, now where is Shigaraki, said Midoriya in a low voice as he made his way through the crowd. The mall was extremely crowded on weekends, so navigating through the crowd without bumping into someone was nearly impossible. Midoriya was making his way through the crowd when a tall teen with glasses bumped into him. He was accompanied by two girls and a red-haired boy. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see where I was going, said the boy as he turned to look at the person he bumped into. Don't worry about it, replied Midoriya in a cheery voice. Midoriya instantly recognized the group. It was Tenya Ida, Ochako Uraraka, Mina Ishido, and Ijiro Kirishima. Said Ida, recognizing Midoriya instantly. Is this a friend of yours, Ida? Asked Ochako. Yeah, introduce us. Mina added, unable to contain her excitement. Does he go to UA? Kaminari asked. Oh wow, it's the 1A first years. I'm a big fan. Uraraka, your zero gravity is amazing. That fight with that explosion guy was intense, said Midoriya, looking over to Uraraka and Mina. Your acid is amazing. I bet you can do all sorts of stuff. Your quirk is also super cool, Midoriya added as he directed his attention to Mina and Kirishima. I can't believe people still remember that, haha, said Uraraka bashfully. Really, you think my quirk is amazing? Asked Mina happily. I have a pretty basic quirk, but I'm glad you think it's cool, Kirishima added with a smile. I wanted to thank you, said Tenya, taking a step forward towards Midoriya. Midoriya slowly took a step back. No need, Tenya. You just needed some help is all, said Midoriya as he took another step back. Hey, sorry, I have to go, Midoriya continued as he quickly turned and disappeared into the crowd. Who was that, Ida? Asked Uraraka. Yeah, Ida, I want to be friends with him. He said my quirk was amazing, Mina added. He was the one who saved me in the hero killer incident. He taught me how a true hero was supposed to act, said Tenya, looking into the crowd of people. The group fell silent. They tried to avoid talking about the Hasu incident and the massive scar Tenya had on his back. Flashback. Tenya will be suspended for an entire day, Aizawa stated to the students. What, why? Asked Zero. I'm getting to that. So pipe down, said Aizawa as his eyes began to glow red. Class 1A fell silent at their teacher's orders. Tenya is currently in the hospital. He tried to exact his revenge on the hero killer on his own. Thankfully, he's alive. But what he did was reckless and stupid. Tenya's actions will not go unpunished, explained Aizawa firmly. The hero killer, seriously, said Kaminari and many other students. Class 1A was awfully quiet the rest of that day. Flashback end. Midoriya was nearing the end of the mall when he spotted a blue-haired teen in a black sweater sitting under a tree. Of course, Midoriya sighed. I'm here like you asked, Shigaraki, said Midoriya as he took a seat next to Shigaraki. There was a pause. and only the chatter of people could be heard before Shigaraki spoke. What makes me and the hero killer different? Asked Shigaraki in a murderous tone. What does that have to do with anything? Midoriya replied, setting his hand on his holstered blade. Those two idiots you brought yesterday. They were stain this stain that I'm sick of it, said Shigaraki. I hate everything and everyone, but everything I do is being overshadowed by him and it's really starting to piss me off. Shigaraki continued, he can say he has a crusade or whatever, but in the end, all he's doing is destroying what he hates. So, what makes us so different? Asked Shigaraki. The difference. You kill and destroy for no reason at all. It's mindless. On the other hand, Stain has a purpose, his being to purge all fake heroes and reveal the true heroes of society, an example being All Might. You, however, take everything as a game. You lack conviction, Shigaraki, that's the difference, said Midoriya as he grasped his blade tightly. Oh, it's all so clear now. Feels like I've connected all the dots about why the hero killer pisses me off so much, and why you're so fucking irritating. I think I get it now, said Shigaraki, oozing bloodlust. It's because of All Might, said Shigaraki, shooting a glance at Midoriya, showing his dry face. All Might? What does he have to do with any of this, said Midoriya to himself. The reason these fools can smile and live their lives is 'cause All Might has that stupid grin on his face, smiling wide as to say, no one can stop me, said Shigaraki with a manic smile on his face. Yeah, that's why. You're his apprentice or whatever and he worships All Might, so that must mean you do too, Shigaraki continued. You're so annoying, Deku, said Shigaraki as he lunged towards Midoriya. It happened in an instant. Shigaraki lunged towards Midoriya with his right hand aiming for his face. Midoriya pulled out his blade aiming for Shigaraki's neck. Midoriya's blade stopped just before Shigaraki's neck and Shigaraki's hand stopped just before Midoriya's face. The entire altercation happened in mere seconds. Shigaraki and Midoriya both stood down right after. They couldn't bring any more attention to themselves. I'm going home. I hope you got your answer, said Midoriya as he got up and made his way towards the exit of the mall. Whatever, replied Shigaraki as he got up, began to walk in the opposite direction. The next morning, Midoriya was working on his new weapon when he was interrupted by Kurogiri warping into his room. Good morning, Deku. I hate to interrupt, but you're needed at the bar, said Kurogiri as he opened a warp gate for Midoriya to step through. Sure, no problem, said Midoriya. Midoriya and Kurogiri were soon teleported to the bar. Shigaraki was talking to a group of 8 people. Midoriya, these are the new recruits, said Kurogiri, signaling over to the group of people. Hello Dabai, Magni, Toga, good to see you again, said Midoriya, putting one hand over his heart and bowing slightly. Hey, replied Dabai. Hello, replied Magni. Hi Deku, it's me Toga, I think you're cute, but I think a little more blood would make you cuter, said Toga, barely able to control her excitement. Midoriya was still not used to Toga and her weird obsession with blood, but he had to deal with it. Midoriya turned to look at the other 6. Hello, it's nice to meet you all. My name is Deku, greeted Deku as he bowed. I'm Jinbu Begawara, but you can call me Twice. Nice to meet you. Not really, said Twice, contradicting himself. Midoriya was confused and intrigued by Twice. It was as if 2 people were living in his body. The name's Muscular, and quit with the bowing shit. I'm here to kill shit, not be friends, scowled Muscular as he made his way to the bar. Midoriya ignored Muscular and directed his attention to a young schoolboy in the group. Hey, I go by Mustard. Nice to meet you, greeted Mustard as he made his way to a corner. He seems awfully young, Midoriya thought, examining at the school uniform the boy was wearing. Midoriya was surprised this many people had joined the league. Tamura hated these kinds of people. A pleasure, I am Atsuhiro Sako, but please call me Compress, greeted Compress politely. Would you like to see some magic? Asked Compress, pulling out 3 colored marbles. Sure, let's see it, replied Midoriya, somewhat intrigued. All right, I have 3 marbles here, red, blue, and green. I want you to follow the red one and tell me where you think it is, explained Compress, showing Midoriya the 3 marbles. Compress was quick with his hands, rolling the marbles in between his fingers and throughout his palm. Now, where is the red one? Compress asked Midoriya. It's in your mouth. Amazing, you can speak clearly with a marble in your mouth, replied Midoriya. Compress was surprised Midoriya was able to see through his trick. He took the marble out of his mouth with a smile. You have some good eyes, Deku. Thank you for playing my game, Compress said, putting the marbles back in his pocket. Midoriya gave a small smile and made his way to the next member. It was a reptilian-looking man with pink hair. Hello, Midoriya greeted, but the reptilian shot a mean glance at Midoriya in return, however. Listen, if you got a problem, spit it out, because whether you like it or not, we're in the same group, said Midoriya, stepping up to the reptilian. GRR, Shuichi Iguchi is my name. I go by Spinner. You don't deserve to be Stain's apprentice. You soil his name. Spinner said angrily. I should have been the one to study under him. Instead, he gave the torch to a child, Spinner said angrily. I didn't ask to be Stain's apprentice. He offered me a chance and I took it. Stop acting like a child yourself and grow up, Midoriya responded coldly. Grow up, shouted Spinner as he threw a punch at Midoriya. Midoriya dodged and grabbed Spinner's arm, throwing him onto the floor and pinning him down. Are you done? Midoriya asked, maintaining his grip on Spinner's arm, prepared to break his arm if he tried anything. Let him go, Deku, before I kill you, said Shigaraki. Midoriya loosened his grip and stood up. Spinner simply growled as he got up from the floor. All right, now that you've all met, Shigaraki will be explaining the plan we will be executing tomorrow morning, Kurogiri said, looking over to Shigaraki. Everyone in the room turned to face the blue-haired teen. We are kidnapping someone of interest to the League tomorrow. You all will be a part of the Vanguard action squad. Dabai, you are the leader. Take compress and twice with you, explained Shigaraki. Sure, whatever, replied Dabai, showing his disinterest. Giorr, Magni and Spinner, you two are together. Blonde brat. Mustard, you two are going alone, Shigaraki said. Okay, replied Mustard in a low voice. All right then. We got this, replied Magni, looking over to Spinner, who simply rolled his eyes. Ye sayer, replied Toga cheerfully. Deku, you're with Muscular. He said Shigaraki, hiding his smile. If you say so, replied Midoriya. All right, that is all. We have one more member, Moonfish, but he's not entirely sane. He will be on the battlefield with you all, don't you worry. Kurogiri explained, showing everyone a photo of Moonfish. All right, if that's it. I'm leaving, said Midoriya as he opened the front door and walked back to his apartment. Shigaraki had a huge smile on his face, which was covered by a hand. Tomorrow is going to be great. Hey Muscular, come here for a second. I got a job for you, said Shigaraki in a twisted voice. Midoriya has been found out by Naomasa. However, what will the detective do with this information? Shigaraki has a proposal for Muscular. What could it possibly be? In the mountains, the air was cold and crisp. At the top of a plateau stood 5 people. I'm itching to go already. Let's hurry up and move, said Muscular impatiently under his dark cloak. It's too soon. Besides, there is no need to do anything flashy, added Mustard. Yeah, but who died and made you boss? Dabai added. Midoriya was sitting at the edge of the plateau on the left of Toga. So bright. Are they stupid? Oh well, what's done is done, said Midoriya to himself, looking over to the bright source of light in the distance. I mean, this thing is not cute at all, complained Toga, fidgeting with her mask. I designed them. They weren't meant to be cute, but I'll paint it pink for you next time, Toga, Midoriya said, still looking over at the forest. Really? Thank you, said Toga, hugging Midoriya from behind. Whatever, replied Midoriya, ignoring her hug. Midoriya was seemingly emotionless. He didn't care for anyone or anything emotionally except his mother, who he still visited, and himself. Who cares? Let's just get to it. My blood is pumping like crazy over here, Muscular growled, oozing his bloodlust. Shut up, you whack jobs. We wait until the rest are here, Dabai commanded. The timing couldn't have been any more perfect. As the other 3 arrived on the scene, Magni, Moonfish, and Spinner. Sorry to keep you waiting, said Magni, lugging around her weapon, which was wrapped in a cloth. A job, Moonfish said, barely able to speak. Spinner didn't say anything and simply adjusted his costume. He took a glance over to Midoriya, who was still staring blankly into the forest. Spinner growled lowly at the sight of Midoriya. We will make them understand that their peace rests in our hands, Dabai said loudly as the entire group except Midoriya rallied behind him. The next day at 7 p.m., Class 1A and 1B were going to be having a test of courage in the forest, a simple game which consisted of scaring the other class. Students began to pour into the forest when the smell of burnt wood caught everyone's attention. Dabai and Mustard began their assault and cornered the students. Spinner and Magni went off to assault the pussycats. The rest went off on their own except Midoriya and Muscular. Well, what do we have here? A face that isn't on the list, said Muscular to the child before him. Midoriya was close behind, watching the interaction unfold between Muscular and the young boy. The mission assigned to them was to assault the teachers if Magni and Spinner were to be overrun. Hey kid, that a slick hat you got on. How about you trade me for this dumb mask? I'm new, so this was all they had, said Muscular, taking a step forward. The boy took 1 step back in fear. The boy turned around quickly and ran. Muscular, however, activated his quirk muscle augmentation and dashed in front of the young child. I'm gonna have fun with you, Muscular shouted, augmenting his right arm and throwing a punch towards the child. Muscular, however, was surprised to see Midoriya holding the boy in his arms and setting him down behind him. TCH, that's no fun, sighed Muscular, staring at Midoriya with murderous eyes. What's your name, kid? Asked Midoriya, facing Muscular. Koda, said the boy shakily. All right, Koda, stay out of my way, said Midoriya as he straightened himself and prepared himself for Muscular's attack. I love how you already know I'm going to kill you. Now show me some blood, shouted Muscular as he dashed towards Midoriya. Midoriya ducked underneath Muscular's punch and reached into one of his utility holsters. Even if I'm more experienced, I'm still only human. 1 solid punch from this guy would shatter my body, Midoriya thought as he pulled out a flashbang from his belt and tossed it towards the Muscular man. The flashbang made a loud clang as it went off, making a huge flash of light, blinding Muscular. Fuck, shouted Muscular, grasping at his eye. Midoriya put all his force into his legs and dashed towards Muscular with his blade in hand. His muscle layer is thick. I'm going to need all my force and weight behind my blade if I want to do any damage, Midoriya said to himself as he stabbed Muscular in the arm. Muscular recoiled from the pain but quickly grabbed Midoriya by the collar, throwing him towards the side of the mountain. Fucking hell, this guy isn't even using his full power either, coughed Midoriya. Ha, that one hurt, brat, said Muscular as he walked towards Midoriya, who was on the floor coughing up blood. Before you die, I just wanted to let you know, Shigaraki wanted you dead, but so did I. It works out for both of us, said Muscular as he lifted his arm over Midoriya, winding a punch before he was hit in the head with a rock. Water hose. My mom and dad, did you torture them like this? When you killed them, choked Koda with tears in his eyes. Whoa, you're their kid. This must be fate or something. They're the ones who gave me this glass eye, said Muscular, showing his glass eye to Koda as he took a few steps in Koda's direction. Because of people like you, things always end up like this, Koda shouted at Muscular, who was unfazed by the child's words. Brats like you sure know how to pass the blame. That's no good. I don't really hold a grudge against them. I killed them like I wanted to in the end. They tried to stop me. We all did our best and had to deal with the results. What's bad is when you can't put your money where your mouth is. Muscular continued, getting closer to Koda, who in turn took a few steps back. Like your mommy and daddy, shouted Muscular, aiming a punch towards Koda. Midoriya was behind Muscular in an instant, but Muscular predicted it and threw a punch backward towards Midoriya. Ah, I knew you'd attack me, you quirkless piece of trash. I have speed and power, shouted Muscular, turning to face Midoriya. Midoriya dodged Muscular's punch, using the large man's arm as footing to dash towards him again. Murder, without conviction, is the greatest sin. Death. Yes, death is the only cure for the sick, such as yourself, said Midoriya, emanating an insane amount of bloodlust. Muscular's confident demeanor switched to fear at the sight of Midoriya and his sheer intent to kill. Midoriya launched his arm into one of Muscular's muscle fibers and lifted his blade. Now, your speed is meaningless, said Midoriya as he slashed at Muscular's face with his blade. Muscular brought his head back, barely dodging the blade by an inch. He was cut on his forehead and blood began to spill throughout his face. Muscular grabbed Midoriya by his arm and threw him towards Koda. This kid, am I afraid? Muscular asked himself as he looked down at his hands, which were shaking uncontrollably. Midoriya lifted himself off the ground and took a single step forward, before stopping suddenly. What just happened? Asked Midoriya as he looked up to see Muscular in front of him, reaching into his pocket. Midoriya then remembered Stain's words. Slaughter. It's basically bloodlust turned up to 11, Midoriya remembered as he looked at his hands covered in blood. You pushed me to this state. Playtime is over, Deku. I'm using my serious eye, said Muscular as he put on a red glass eye. Shit, Koda, grab onto me, Midoriya commanded. Koda quickly followed Midoriya orders and latched onto his back, closing his eyes in the process. Muscular used 100% power and blew a chunk of the mountain's ridge off. The air pressure gave Midoriya a big enough push to send him flying to his desired location. You can't dodge forever, said Muscular, shooting a glance at Midoriya and Koda, who were now behind him. I won't be able to beat him. Not like this, said Midoriya, setting down Koda behind him and looking at the crazed man before him. I'll have to test it here, and if it doesn't work, this kid and I are as good as dead, said Midoriya to himself as he reached into one of his utility belts and pulled out a retractable gun and a syringe-looking dart. Now show me some blood, Deku shouted Muscular as he dashed towards Midoriya. Midoriya grabbed Koda by his shirt's collar and jumped to the side, barely dodging. I have to use it now, and I can't hit his fibers, said Midoriya as he loaded the gun with the dart. Midoriya watched as Muscular turned slowly to face him. Nowhere left to go. That means it's time to die, said Muscular, walking slowly towards Midoriya. All right, please work, Midoriya said to himself as he ran towards Muscular. At least you will die like a man, shouted Muscular, throwing a telegraphed punch towards Midoriya. Midoriya did a spin and dodged the punch. Midoriya pointed the gun at Muscular's neck, which was his only opening. Gotcha, Midoriya said aloud as he pulled the trigger and the gun fired. The dart penetrated Muscular's skin and immediately poured a liquid into him. That was it. Aha. Well, it's time to die, Deku, shouted Muscular as he threw a punch towards Midoriya. Midoriya wouldn't be able to dodge the punch, he was much too close. However, as Midoriya prepared himself for death, Muscular's muscle fibers instantly retracted midway through his punch. 3 seconds. That's how long it took to take effect, huh? Said Midoriya, taking a mental note whilst folding his dart gun and returning it to its holster. Well, what did you do to me? Asked Muscular, taking a step back. I erased your quirk. Now we can have a fair fight, Midoriya explained. Don't you agree? Midoriya asked with a sadistic look on his face. Flashback. A Nama with the ability to erase quirks. May I ask why? Asked All for One. Sensei, as you know, I'm quirkless. I am highly trained and I can handle myself. However, I will lose to sheer brute force, for example All Might, or an individual with a size-increasing quirk. However, I will not use the Namu for missions. More like a lab rat, explained Midoriya, reading his notes on quirk erasing. I see. You wish to even out the playing field, all for one said with a chuckle. More or less, responded Midoriya, staring at the encased Namo. Flashback end. That's right. Take it in muscular. How the rest of us feel, the quirkless and the weak. Do you feel it? The feeling of being powerless, said Midoriya as he dashed toward muscular. Muscular threw a large right hook towards Midoriya, who was already in his face. Without your quirk, you're just a man. And without training or power, it's as if I'll be finishing off a downed animal, Midoriya explained as he cut Muscular's arms and legs. Muscular grunted at the pain and shock of his quirk being erased. Midoriya was almost bullying Muscular. The difference in ability was too great. Midoriya had experience and training, meanwhile Muscular relied on his quirk and sheer brute strength to win battles. Grrrrahhh. Fuck you, shouted Muscular, taking another swing only to miss yet again. Don't struggle. I'll make this quick, said Midoriya as he swiftly got behind Muscular and raised his knife. Midoriya bashed Muscular in the back of his head with the handle of the blade, rendering him unconscious. Go to sleep, said Midoriya as he watched the large man fall to the floor. Midoriya quickly cuffed Muscular and moved him against a wall. Psychopaths like you are better behind bars, or dead, said Midoriya as he looked over Muscular's body. Midoriya turned to walk towards Kota before turning around and kicking Muscular in the ribs, shattering two in the process. Sorry, I slipped, chuckled Midoriya as he turned back around and walked towards Kota, who was hiding behind a rock. You beat him, but you're a villain, aren't you? Asked Kota, wiping away his tears. Just a job, kid. Besides, killing just isn't my style, explained Midoriya as he sat down and took a deep breath. What's your name? Please tell me, and can I see your face? Asked Kota shyly. Deku sighed and took off his hood, revealing his face. He saw no harm in showing a child. Deku. And that's all you need to know about me. Now let's take you to your guardians. Midoriya responded, putting his hood back on and signaling Kota to get on his back. Deku. Cool, Kota said to himself as he latched onto Midoriya's back. Midoriya was making his way through the forest when he saw the large building in the distance. Midoriya was interrupted by Dabai's voice in his ear. Deku, it's Dabai, we got the package. Make it to the center ASAP. We are waiting on you, hurry up or we're leaving without you, said Dabai into Midoriya's earpiece. He had it muted during his fight with Muscular. Copy, responded Midoriya as he put on his hood again. Aizawa, Vlad and what was left of the Pussycats were counting the students when Midoriya appeared out of the forest with Kota. Shino, shouted Kota as he hopped off Midoriya's back and towards his aunt. Kota shouted Shino Aka Mandalay as she opened her arms wide open. All the teachers and students turned to see Midoriya standing in the back, standing behind a tree watching silently. Midoriya wanted to make sure Kota made it back safely. I'll see you around, kid, said Midoriya as he ran back into the forest and towards Dabai's location. Who was that? Murmured some students from both classes. Kota, who was that? Asked Shino, looking into the dark forest. His name was Deku. He saved me, explained Kota. Tenya's ears perked up at the name. He's a villain, but he saved me from the man who killed my mom and dad. Choked Kota, trying hard to hold back his tears. Muscular, he brought him down. Mandalay asked her nephew. Yeah, he was so cool, said Kota as he hugged his Aunt Shino warmly. Deku again, huh? Your name just keeps popping up everywhere, doesn't it? Said Aizawa in a low voice as he turned to care for his students. Midoriya soon found his way back to his group. Everyone was there except for Moonfish, Mustard, and Muscular. Where is Muscular? Asked Dabai. We got separated in the commotion. Did you guys get whoever Shigaraki wanted? And where is Mustard and Moonfish? Replied Midoriya calmly. Yeah, we got him. As for Moonfish and Mustard, they got taken out, explained Dabai, pulling out his burner cell phone. Forget Muscular, we can't stay here any longer, Dabai said, signaling Kurogiri on his phone to teleport everyone back. Midoriya turned to face the location where Muscular was. Shigaraki, my patience has drawn thin, Midoriya said in a low voice, walking through Kurogiri's misty portal. Back at the League of Villains HQ. Did you guys get him? Shigaraki asked Dabai. Yay, we got him, replied Dabai in confirmation. The rest of the Vanguard squad filled the bar, including Midoriya. Compress pulled out a marble and presented it to Shigaraki. Why won't you just die? Shigaraki thought, looking over to Midoriya. Well, how do we get him out? Asked Shigaraki angrily. I recommend preparing some proper restraints first. He is very feisty. Compress said. I'll get to it, said Kurogiri, teleporting away. Kurogiri returned minutes later with proper restraints. Midoriya was uninterested for the most part. He was thinking hard about something he had to do. Bring him out, ordered Shigaraki. As you wish, replied Compress, releasing Bakugo Katsuki from his marble. Bakugo was unconscious, so the League had time to tie him down. Midoriya was spacing off. When he turned to see the package they had to retrieve, Midoriya's eyes widened slightly at the sight of his old childhood friend, Bully. He was the one we had to retrieve. Are you serious? Midoriya thought to himself, staring at the unconscious blonde boy. Midoriya made sure to hide his surprised face by putting on his hood. Hey, why are you hiding your face? Asked Dabai loudly. I would rather keep my identity secret, is all Midoriya replied. I can respect that, Dabai said, looking over to Bakugo. Bakugo wouldn't be awake for another 24 hours, so the League of Villain members went to bed and decided to rest up for tomorrow. Midoriya lay awake in his bed, wondering why Shigaraki wanted Bakugo, and how Midoriya was going to get back at Shigaraki for all he's done. The next day, it was currently 6:30 p.m. The League was in the bar talking to Bakugo except Midoriya. Midoriya, you are needed at the bar, said Kurogiri into the intercom connected to his room. I'm on my way, replied Midoriya, putting on his villain costume. Midoriya made his way to the bar. Spinner was preaching Stain's crusade when Midoriya made his way into the bar. Spinner gave Midoriya a mean look and continued with his speech. Any progress, Kurogiri? Asked Midoriya, making his way behind the bar. Unfortunately, no. The young man hasn't spoken a word, replied Kurogiri, looking over to Bakugo, who wore a mean expression. I see, Midoriya said, looking over to Bakugo. Dabai, untie him, Shigaraki demanded, looking over to Dabai. Huh? Midoriya and Dabai asked in unison. He'll go wild for sure, replied Dabai. It's okay. We got to treat him as an equal after all. Besides, our little UA student here should know he can't win, explained Shigaraki, looking at the restrained teen. Twice, you do it, commanded Dabai. What, me? No thanks, Twice replied quickly before he started contradicting himself and untied Bakugo. Thanks to rules and heroes we have been suffocated. We have all suffered like you. Join us and break free from the shackles heroes have put upon you, explained Compressed to Bakugo. Bakugo sat in his chair massaging his wrist when Shigaraki began to walk in his direction. Before Shigaraki could say anything, Bakugo set off an explosion in his face. Thought I was gonna croak of old age. I hate guys like you who can't get to the point. Basically, we want to cause trouble. Join us. Would always admired All Might's triumphs. And no matter what you all say, nothing will change that, Bakugo explained loudly. Midoriya was silently observing Bakugo and the League's actions. He didn't want any unnecessary attention, or for Bakugo to reveal his real name, putting Midoriya's mother in potential danger. The TV mounted on a wall began to show a live interview of the U.S. School Board and their approach to the situation at hand. Bakugo pursues the title hero more than anyone. If the villains can't see that, they are foolish, Aizawa explained to the reporter. We are hardly approaching this passively. At this moment, we are working with police to retrieve the student who was taken from us, Nezu added. Ha, good old UA, said Bakugo, looking at the screen. Father, said Shigaraki in a low voice. Midoriya quickly grasped his knife, preparing himself to stop Shigaraki from potentially killing Bakugo. You mustn't, Shigaraki, calm yourself, shouted Kurogiri as he threw himself to stop Shigaraki from doing anything rash. Stay back, all of you. This kid is an important pawn. I thought we might understand each other, said Shigaraki, looking over to Bakugo. Nope, Bakugo sneered back. And we just heard about the hero's search for you, so I won't bother trying to convince you anymore, said Shigaraki, relocating his hand on his face. Master, lend me your power, Shigaraki asked the monitor. Very well, a smart choice, Shigaraki Tamura, replied All for One. Little did Shigaraki know the League of Villains hideout was about to be raided by the top heroes in the country 30 minutes earlier. Okay, we have their location. This will be a swift operation. Endeavor, you will support the police in the back. All Might, Kamui Woods, Ed Shot, and Gran Torino, you're on point, explained Naomasa to the pros. One more thing, be on the lookout for this villain. He is to be apprehended at any cost, Naomasa added, showing the heroes a photo of Midoriya. All Might's blood went cold at the sight of the young teenager. Meanwhile, the others simply acknowledged the order. The heroes all left the conference room except All Might and Naomasa. Naomasa, is this villain by any chance quirkless? All Might asked, choking on his words. Yes, he is. I know the connection you have with him. It wasn't your fault, Toshinori. But regardless of your view on him, he is still a villain and should be treated as such, replied Naomasa, leaving All Might alone in the room. I'll bring you back, Midoriya, All Might said, fully determined. Flashback end. Kurogiri, compress, let's put him to sleep again, commanded Shigaraki as he took a step towards Bakugo. I'm impressed with how unwillingly he is to listen to reason, sighed Compress. Bakugo was posed and ready to defend himself when there was a knock at the door. Camino Pizza Ward, said the voice behind the door. The entire league was confused, all except Midoriya. Well, it took them long enough. Guess this is it. The end of the line, Midoriya thought, preparing himself for heroes to come bursting through the door. In that moment, the entire wall was blown into by All Might, followed by Ed Shot and Kamui. Kurogiri, warp us, shouted Shigaraki, but Kurogiri was quickly binded by Kamui. Kamui had binded all the villains afterward, followed by Ed Shot and Gran Torino. Dabai attempted to ignite his flame but was knocked unconscious by Gran Torino. There is no escape for you, League of Villains, for we are here, said All Might. Spinner and many other villains shuddered at the sight of All Might and his determination. All Might, shuddered Spinner, looking at the large man. We're not the only ones you have to worry about. Kurogiri, bring out the Namu, shouted Shigaraki. I'm sorry, Shigaraki Tamura. The Namu set aside for us are gone, explained Kurogiri nervously. Your mischief has gone long enough. You have underestimated Bakugo's spirit and our rage, said All Might, staring at the blue-haired teen. It ends here, Shigaraki Tamura shouted All Might, looking at the binded villains. Ends here, huh? No, this is just the beginning. You're all justice this, justice that. We're going to remove you from the picture and show you how fragile your peace really is, Shigaraki said to All Might angrily. Kurogiri, shouted Shigaraki. However, the misty figure was knocked out in an instant by Edgeshot. What just happened? Is he dead? Asked Toga, concerned for her fellow league member. No, he's just unconscious. I just fiddled with his insides, explained Edgeshot. Just take it easy. Kenji Hikishi, Atsuhiro Sako, Shuichi Iguchi, Himiko Toga, Jinbubai Gawara. With a little intel and time we figured out all your identities, said Gran Torino, looking over at the villains. And you the one with the hood on, said Gran Torino, walking over to Midoriya, who was binded by Kamui. Midoriya was rather quiet and calm during the entire raid. He knew they lost the moment Kamui binded all of them in an instant. Gran Torino made his way to Midoriya and pulled back his hood. It took Bakugo a few seconds to realize who it was under the hood. But when he did, his eyes grew wide at the sight. Midoriya. All Might tried his best to maintain his cool, but his demeanor also changed to a surprised look. It had been more than a year since he last seen Midoriya. Ear, choked Bakugo. Yes, this is, said Gran Torino before he was cut off by Midoriya. If you say my name, I swear you will pay, explained Midoriya in a low, murderous tone. Gran Torino understood how dangerous Midoriya by the change in tone. Gran Torino decided to keep his real name a secret. Gran Torino decided to call him by his villain name. This is the villain Deku. He's wanted by the police, explained Gran Torino. Shigaraki was beginning to lose his cool. He was getting angrier by each passing moment. It can't be defeated just like that. No freaking way. Get out of here. And go to hell, Shigaraki said in a murderous tone. Where is he, Shigaraki? Shouted All Might. I hate you, Shigaraki shouted in response. Black liquid, however, began to teleport Namu at the league base and outside the building. Bakugo and every league member was engulfed by the dark liquid and began to teleport elsewhere. All Might tried to grab hold of Bakugo, but it was far too late. He was gone. "NOOO," shouted All Might at the top of his lungs. Soon everyone was teleported to All for One's location. What was that? Asked Bakugo, looking over behind to see the other villains appearing. Apologies, Bakugo said All for One, looking over to his disciple Shigaraki. Behind a concrete wall was 4 UA students, Tenya Ada, Momo Yaoyorozu, Ijiru Kirishima, and Ochako Uraraka. Kirishima had made a plan to rescue Bakugo along with the help of his classmates. How do we save him? Asked Uraraka. Indeed, it seems rather impossible, Momo added. I have a plan, but we are all going to have to do our part, said Tenya, looking over to his fellow classmates. All right, Kirishima confirmed. You've failed again, Tamura, but that's what I'm here for, so you can get back up and try again. This is all for you. All for One explained, extended a hand to his disciple before he was interrupted by All Might. All for One quickly turned around to block All Might's punch. I knew you'd come here to kill me again, said All for One as he activated his quirks. All for One's arm began to swell up and punched All Might away, shattering multiple buildings in the process. Sheer power versus sheer power, said Midoriya, watching intently as All Might was nowhere to be seen. All Might, shouted Bakugo. He won't die from a love tap like that, explained All for One. Escape from this place, Tamura, and take the boy with you, said All for One, forcefully activating Kurogiri's quirk, who was on the ground unconscious. Shigaraki, we have to leave, while All Might is busy, suggested Compress. Get the pawn, ordered Shigaraki, looking over to Bakugo. Bakugo began to furiously fend off the villains, making sure as to not let Compress grab a hold of him. Midoriya, on the other hand, was calmly observing everything happen before him. He no longer owed the league anything. Shigaraki wanted him dead. There was no reason to stick around, not anymore. Deku, help us now, Shigaraki shouted, being blasted away by Bakugo at the same time. Bakugo had completely forgotten about Midoriya and his new status of villain. He shot a glance over to his old childhood friend. Okay, Midoriya said, making his way over to Bakugo. Midoriya began to engage Bakugo, but only putting enough effort to seem like he was trying. In reality, Midoriya was letting himself be pushed back and blown away on purpose. You are still so weak. Diku, Bakugo shouted, blasting away Midoriya. This guy, man. Midoriya chuckled, dusting himself off. All right, let's do this, said Kirishima, getting in position. I'm ready, said Tenya. I am as well, Momo added. Let's do this. I hope it works, Uraraka said softly as to not be heard by the villains. The plan was simple and effective. Uraraka would use her zero gravity on Tenya and Kirishima as to reach maximum speed. Kirishima would be a barrier to break through the concrete wall, and Momo would make a small ramp and set it up beforehand while the villains were distracted. All right, you guys can do this. Please be careful, said Uraraka, making her way back into the city. Momo made the ramp and set it up in front of the concrete wall when the villains were busy trying to catch Bakugo. Good luck, you two, whispered Momo as she quickly followed Uraraka. Alright. RECIPRO burst, shouted Tenya, igniting his engines and smashing through the wall with Kirishima as a battering ram and using the ramp to get an insane amount of height thanks to Uraraka's quirk. A loud smash could be heard and everyone turned to see two boys in midair. Come, shouted Kirishima, holding out his hand towards Bakugo. Bakugo saw his chance and used his quirk to blast himself towards Tenya and Kirishima. Are you guys idiots? Bakugo said with a sneer as he grabbed Kirishima's hand. Spinner, come here quickly. You two, Compress, said Magni, signaling them over to her. Magni acted quickly to propel Compress towards the trio in the sky when he was stopped by. Get out of here, you brats, said Mount Lady as she fell to the ground with a loud crash. All Might and All for One were still in their heated battle, exchanging blows which caused the whole city to rumble. However, now that Bakugo was gone, All Might could let loose. Midoriya, I'm sorry, but I can't hold back. I must stop this man here and now, thought All Might as he looked over to Midoriya. And then to All for One. We can still catch them one more shot, said Magni before she was knocked out by Gran Torino. Gran Torino knocked out twice and Spinner quickly after. Midoriya, Tamura and Toga were the only ones left conscious in the fight. All for One activated Magna's quirk to push them into the warp gate. Wait, sensei. With that body you'll, said Shigaraki as he was engulfed by the mist. Continue the fight, Tamura. All for One said as he turned to face All Might. Midoriya and the rest of the league were soon being pushed into the portal. Gran Torino, however, saw his chance. With all the villains being occupied, he quickly took a deep breath and used his jets at max force to propel himself toward Midoriya, grabbing him in midair. Midoriya didn't struggle or fight back. He simply let himself be taken to the police by the hero. You're coming with me, said Gran Torino, using his quirk to make his way through the streets and towards the police. You're quite nimble, aren't you, old timer? Midoriya said nonchalantly as he was being pulled by his collar. Hey, can you do me a favor, hero? Midoriya asked the Gran Torino. I don't think you deserve one villain. Gran Torino responded harshly. Maybe you're right, but I'll ask you regardless. Can you please tell the police not to release my name to the public, said Midoriya solemnly. Why are you so adamant on that, kid? Asked Gran Torino, slowing down his jets. I worked with the League. I kept my name a secret, not for my sake but for my mother's. If they find out my name, I have no doubt Shigaraki will come after my family. Midoriya explained. Oh, I see. Well, I'll see what I can do, Gran Torino responded. Midoriya and Gran Torino soon arrived with the police and Midoriya was arrested. Take him to the station and wait for Naomasa, Gran Torino explained as he made his way back to All Might. It's over. I wonder what Stain is doing, said Midoriya in a low voice, looking out the police car window. Midoriya was transferred to the police station where he was processed and put in a jail cell. The police confiscated all of Midoriya's weapons and gadgets. Along with his costume, Midoriya was given an orange jumpsuit. The fight between All Might and All for One had long ended, but the replay was showing in the police station TV. Midoriya had a clear view from his cell. Look at All Might, standing tall after all that. Amazing, mentioned a police officer eating a donut. So All for One lost, huh? No surprise there. His body was far too fragile, said Midoriya in low voice, watching as All Might struggled to stay standing. Midoriya was not told much aside from his rights and his interrogation he would be receiving the next morning. Midoriya laid down and fell to sleep instantly. He was tired of everything. At the police station, 10 a.m., Midoriya was patiently waiting for his interview with Naomasa. Midoriya was somewhat impatient. He wasn't allowed visits from anyone until his interrogation was finished. Midoriya wanted to see his mother in Midoriya. The sound of rattling keys caught Midoriya's attention. All right, against the wall. Arms behind your back, said the police officer, pulling out his handcuffs. Midoriya did as he was instructed and let the policeman cuff him and guide him out of his cell. The policeman took Midoriya into a soundproof room with a single bolted-down table and one chair on both sides. All right, sit here and put your hands on the table, commanded the officer, pointing towards the chair. Midoriya didn't say a word and sat down on the chair, setting his cuffed hands on the table afterward. The policeman connected Midoriya cuffs to the table. The detective will be here soon, said the policeman, coldly locking the door behind him as he left. About time, sighed Midoriya, looking down at his restrained wrists. 20 minutes later, the metal door slowly opened, revealing a single detective. Good morning, Naomasa, Midoriya greeted as he bowed his head. Good morning, Izuku, Midoriya. Or should I say Deku, Naomasa responded, taking a seat across from Midoriya. Whichever is fine, as long as my name is not made public, Midoriya stated firmly. Very well, Naomasa said, taking a mental note on Midoriya's request. You know, I knew if anyone would figure me out, it would be you, Midoriya said, sitting upright in his chair. How so? Asked Naomasa. Your visits with my mom. You're no idiot either, so it was only a matter of time until you pieced it all together, explained Midoriya. So you kept an eye on your mother, said Naomasa, probing Midoriya. Of course, if anything were to happen to her because of me, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, Midoriya replied solemnly. I see. Well, Midoriya, I'm going to ask you some questions. I hope you will cooperate with me. Naomasa said, taking out his notepad. Of course, ask away, Detective Midoriya replied, shifting in his chair. Midoriya, when did you join the league? Asked Naomasa, activating his quirk. I would say around 2 months, give or take. I haven't been with them long, Midoriya replied. I see. And before you joined the league, can you tell me about your whereabouts during that time? Naomasa asked, looking at his notes on Stain. I trained under Stain, the hero killer, for a little over a year. He taught me how to fight and defend myself, how to be something more than a quirkless and timid child. However, after some time he suggested I join the league. We parted ways not long after, Midoriya explained, fidgeting with his cuffs. They were on fairly tight. Do you know Stain's current whereabouts now? Asked Naomasa. No, Stain keeps to himself for the most part, replied Midoriya quickly. Naomasa was using his quirk. Everything Midoriya was saying was true. It surprised Naomasa that Midoriya was being so cooperative. I'm not lying. Besides, with that quirk of yours, it seems like a waste of time if I tried to lie, haha, Midoriya chuckled. Naomasa was caught off guard. Midoriya knew of his quirk as Naomasa tried to keep it a secret. I'm surprised you know of my quirk, Naomasa replied with a surprised tone. Of course I do. I know the quirks of nearly everybody in Japan. Midoriya replied. Is that the work you were assigned to in the league? Naomasa asked curiously. Yes, I recorded quirks and presented them to the league. I was also an on and off field agent. Mostly off, but you get the idea, Midoriya replied, looking down at his cuffs. You were present at the assault on UA and the summer camp, correct? Asked Naomasa, looking at Midoriya with a serious face. Yes, that's correct. I was present on both occasions. I have been undercover multiple times, however, and as for the summer camp raid, things didn't go as planned. Midoriya explained. Please elaborate, Midoriya. How many times were you undercover, and please tell me what happened at the camp? Why didn't things go as planned? Naomasa asked, writing down everything Midoriya was saying. I was undercover during the UA entrance exam. Don't worry, I didn't do anything to the students. I simply took the exam to test myself. I was under the name Akaguro Hiro. Midoriya explained. Naomasa was surprised to hear Midoriya was Hiro, but the detective very well what Midoriya was capable of. Midoriya took a short pause and continued. The other 2 times were unintentional. I was to record students' quirks for the league and I took a photo with the students of 1A. The other time was at the mall. I interacted with a couple students of class 1A for a few minutes. Midoriya explained to the detective, who was busy writing down in his notepad. Things never go as planned. This much I have learned from the league. I was assigned backup along with a villain who went by the alias Muscular. Shigaraki was not fond of my involvement in the league and ordered Muscular to kill me. I defeated Muscular and regrouped with the squad shortly after. Midoriya said, not mentioning Koda. Muscular, a bloodthirsty villain, and yet you managed to take him down. He was apprehended and sent to jail. He's looking at life or the death sentence, you know. Naomasa replied, looking up from his notepad. Good. Scum like him are waste of space on this earth, Midoriya replied with a cold expression. Midoriya, I'm going to ask you 3 more questions. Please answer truthfully, Naomasa said, tightening his grasp on his notepad. Before Naomasa could ask his question, he glanced over to Midoriya's wrists. They were tightly secured, maybe even too much. Naomasa stood up and released Midoriya from his cuffs. Thank you. They were rather tight, Midoriya said, massaging his wrists. Not a problem. Are you ready to answer, Midoriya? Naomasa asked, moving the cuffs to the side. Of course, Detective, Midoriya replied, setting both of his hands on the table. Midoriya, how many students have you injured? Naomasa asked in a somewhat nervous tone. Naomasa was afraid of this question. If Midoriya assaulted the students with a knife or a deadly weapon, it was possible he would be seeing up to 15 years in prison. I have only attacked 2 students. I engaged in hand-to-hand combat with Bakugo Katsuki and Kirishima Ijiro. Midoriya responded calmly. I see. Naomasa sighed in relief. Midoriya, do you know anything about the Namu? Naomasa asked firmly. I know they are creatures pumped with multiple quirks. That is all I know about them. All for One made sure to keep everyone in the dark. Midoriya explained, not mentioning the personal Namu he requested long ago. I understand. Thank you for being honest on that one, Naomasa said, flipping through his notes. Midoriya, Gran Torino said you didn't put up a fight when he apprehended you. Why is that? Asked Naomasa curiously. I was done with it all. My life was under constant threat by everyone. I just wanted it to end. And I wanted to see my mother again, Midoriya explained with a sigh. Oh, Naomasa replied with a sigh of his own. There was a short pause in the room. Midoriya, why? Why did you become a villain? Naomasa asked, looking straight at Midoriya. Why, that's a good one. I'm not sure myself, detective, but I'll tell you about myself. Hopefully that will shed some light. I was just a child, and like any other child, I was full of hopes and dreams. My dream, however, was to become a hero, and not just any hero. A great one like All Might. A hero who could save anyone with a smile. My dream, however, would not become a reality. I was quirkless. My only true friend became my tormentor, bullying me for being quirkless. But I powered through it all. The abuse and neglect. Deep down I wanted to believe I could be a hero, prove them all wrong and show them a timid, quirkless boy could become a hero if he tried hard enough. My string of hope was thin. And then All Might appeared, my chance to know if it was possible. I asked All Might, my idol, if I could become a hero. However, I learned two things that day. Hopes and dreams are only hopes and dreams. And life isn't like the stories or movies, it's a cruel and dangerous place. The string I held for all those years finally snapped that day. I simply couldn't deal with it anymore. So later that day I returned to the same place my dreams were shattered. And jumped, Midoriya said solemnly whilst clenching his fists. Stain took me under his wing. And I became the very thing I swore to defeat. I became a villain, and not because I wanted to, but because I had nowhere else to go. Midoriya explained. Midoriya, Naomasa said in a low voice. Midoriya didn't respond and stared at his scarred and beaten hands. Thank you, Midoriya. That's all I had, Naomasa said, standing up from his seat and heading towards the door. Detective, looking back, my life has been nothing but failure. It's funny how things turn out, huh? Midoriya said, still looking at his hands. Naomasa didn't say a word and walked out of the room. On the other side of the double-sided window stood Toshinori and Midoriya's mother. Inko was crying at the sight of her son. He was nothing like the boy she remembered. Midoriya now was an emotionless boy with no ambition or hope. He was now an empty vessel full of regret. Toshinori's blood was cold. He blamed himself for the current state Midoriya was in. Pathetic, I'm pathetic, Toshinori said in a low voice to himself. Slap. Toshinori took the slap from Inko without retaliation. You, if only you had just said something else. Inko shouted at the blonde skeletal man. Toshinori stood silent and stared at the floor. Mom, please calm down, Naomasa said, walking quickly up to Inko. I know it's not his fault. I should have known sooner. I should have done something. Inko choked, falling to her knees. Naomasa, what do? We can't let him rot in jail, Toshinori asked, which was very uncommon of him. I have a risky idea, but it's worth a shot, Naomasa said, lifting up Inko from the floor. Mom, whenever you're ready to talk to Midoriya, just tell me, Naomasa added, looking back at Midoriya, who was staring blankly into space. 1 hour later, the door to the interrogation room opened and Inko walked in. Mom, Midoriya choked as he looked at his mother. Izuku, Inko said as she hugged her child warmly. I'm sorry, it's my fault you are going through all of this, Midoriya said, scolding himself. No, sweetie, it's my fault for not doing anything sooner. I should have done something, Inko responded, quickly hugging her son tighter. No, that's not it. You gave me all the love in the world. I was just selfish and weak, Midoriya said, letting go of his mother. Izuku, Inko responded in a low voice. I'm sorry I couldn't return home. It was far too dangerous, Midoriya explained to his mother. I know, Izuku, but I'm glad we can see each other again, Inko said as tears began to fill up her eyes. Me too, Midoriya said as he finally shed a single tear. The next day at UA, the teachers of UA were meeting with Naomasa at his request. So, Detective, what is it you wanted to speak to us about? Nezu asked cheerfully. It was in regards to the villain Deku. I request you put him in the hero course, Naomasa said firmly to the teachers. I don't think so, Detective. He's a villain and as such should be treated as one, Vlad King stated loudly. I'm with Vlad on this one, Present Mike added, slumping back into his chair. Please let me explain before you make your decision, Naomasa said, bringing in 4 people who were waiting outside the waiting room. Deku, the villain, as we all know, is a villain. However, his heroic deeds far outweigh his wrongdoings. Allow me to present you the people he has saved, Naomasa explained, signaling the 4 people to come inside the room. The group of 4 consisted of Tenya Ada, Tsuyu Asui, Kota Azuma, and a random man. I'm going to let them each tell you their story, Naomasa said, standing off to the side, allowing the 4 to stand in front of the room. Hello, I am Tsuyu Asui of Class 1A, Asui said, bowing in respect to the teachers. Hello, Miss Asui, please continue, Nezu said with a smile. Deku, the villain. I don't know much about him, but I don't think he's a bad person. I was with Minda when the villains attacked the school. I was hiding when I was spotted by Deku. He could have told his allies, but instead, he told me to run, warning me of his leader and what he would do to us if we stuck around. If it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would be here now, explained Asui as she shuddered at the thought of death. After Asui finished, Tenya soon followed. Deku, he taught me what it meant to be a true hero, and he is also the person who saved my life. I was blinded by revenge, and I made the decision to pursue the hero killer in Hasu. Little did I know how suicidal it was at the time. I was quickly overpowered by the hero killer and he was prepared to take my life. Deku stepped in, however, and convinced hero killer to spare my life. However, I know if it had come to it, Deku would have fought the hero killer to protect me, Tenya explained, facing directly at the teachers. I see, thank you, Tenya, Nezu said in a soft voice. When I caught wind that they caught this villain, I felt like I had to thank him in person. Although I don't know his real name, I'm grateful for what he did. Like most, I was on my way to work, but I was assaulted by a large person. They beat me down and left me to die. Deku didn't, however. He cleaned my wounds and treated me before calling the paramedics. I'm glad I was able to see his face before passing out. explained the man to everyone present. The room went silent. The teachers were still not convinced, however they were beginning to see the good in the villain. Hi, my name is Kota Izumi, Kota said shyly to the room. Hello there, Kota. Please don't be afraid, you're not going to be criticized, I promise, Nezu said with a soft smile. Oh, okay. Deku saved me from the man who killed my mom and dad, Kota said, tearing up. I always sit alone on a cliff, and Muscular the villain, he wanted to kill me just for fun, but Deku stepped in and defeated Muscular, and he made sure I was safe even when he was fighting that guy. Deku was bleeding all over, coughing up blood and limping, but he still let me ride on his back. He took me to my aunt, making sure I was safe. He might be a villain, but he's my hero, Kota said loudly with tears in his eyes. The room grew silent. Everyone in the room was surprised to hear a villain did such a thing. Thank you, Kota, Naomasa said. Naomasa soon led the group outside of the room and quickly made his way back. Now that you have heard these stories, please tell me what you all think, Naomasa asked, standing at the front of the room. He seems much more suited to be a hero, that's for sure, Nezu added, looking at the other teachers. I believe with proper guidance he can become a great hero, All Might said firmly, surprising everyone in the room. Just because he's some sanity doesn't make him any better than the other villains, but he does have some redeeming qualities, Flad King said bluntly. Now that the kid has some support and witnesses, I think we could squeeze him in, Present Mike added enthusiastically. The other teachers murmured amongst themselves, except Aizawa, who seemed rather annoyed. You would all let a villain enter the hero course but not a student of your own school? It's simply ridiculous, Aizawa said somewhat angrily. The room grew silent and many teachers nodded in agreement with Aizawa's reasoning. Detective, we see the good in this villain, but we simply cannot deny our own students the hero course to a villain who has no interest in becoming a hero, Nezu said firmly, showing a hint of sadness. I see. Well, I thank you all for your time, Naomasa said, gathering his evidence and heading towards the door. Naomasa was 1 foot out the door when he was interrupted by Nezu. Wait, I think I have an idea. It's not what you requested, but it's next best thing, Nezu said with a bright smile. 3 days later, Yue was finishing up the last of the students for the boarding school program. The parents all had agreed to allow their children to live at Yue for their safety. Naomasa was busy trying to convince someone of his own. Hello, Midoriya, Naomasa greeted through the jail phone. Hello again, Detective, Midoriya greeted back, bowing his head slightly in respect. Midoriya, I'm sure you know why I'm here, Naomasa said, looking straight at the teen. Ah yes, the boarding program at Yue. I'm sure you know my answer, Midoriya replied in a disinterested tone. Listen, Detective, whatever you say won't change my mind. The idea is stupid and would only cause problems for me and you, Midoriya added. Midoriya, you have 2 years in jail for assault. This could be your chance to get out of here, Naomasa said, trying his best to reason with Midoriya. Detective, I deserve to be locked up, and I'm sure I won't be allowed to roam free at Yue either, Midoriya argued as he looked straight at the detective. Maybe you're right, but I have someone here who wants to tell you something, Naomasa said as he signaled Inko to take the phone. Izuku, I'm glad you're okay, Inko said with a smile. Yeah, I'm okay. Did the detective put you up to this? Midoriya asked his mother. Well, yes and no. He only asked if I agreed with his suggestion and if it was possible for me to try and convince you. He did not force me or anything, Inko explained. That's good to hear, but I really don't think this is a good idea, Midoriya replied. I think it would be much better to be around people your age and not here with these very old men. Plus they said I could visit anytime if you went, Yue, Inko said happily. Midoriya let out a long sigh and spoke. Fine, but I'm doing it for you, not for them, Midoriya said, giving into his mother's smile. Inko smiled brightly and passed the phone to Naomasa. So you'll do it, Midoriya? Naomasa asked once more. Yes, I'll do it, but just know this, Detective, if my mother gets hurt in any of this you will regret it, Midoriya said, coldly hanging up the phone and going back to his cell. Naomasa shivered at Midoriya's words, but he finally convinced Midoriya to go through with his plan. Midoriya has finally agreed to do as Naomasa asked. However, what could it possibly be? At the Midoriya household, 8 a.m., Inko was preparing some tea for her awaited guests. Ding dong. Inko quickly made her way to the door to reveal Naomasa and All Might. Good morning, Mom, Naomasa greeted, hanging his hat on the rack. Good morning, Madam, All Might said as he bowed. Good morning, you too, Inko said with a smile. Inko had done a complete 180. She was no longer depressed or anxious. Now she was full of life and happy for her son's future. This is Midoriya. I would like to apologize. I am deeply sorry for what I have done, All Might said as he got on his knees and put his forehead on the ground, asking for forgiveness. Oh, please, you don't have to do that. I'm glad Izuku is safe and sound, and that he has been given a second chance. This is all I could ever ask for, so please get up, Inko said as she extended her arm towards All Might. Thank you. I will guide young Midoriya to the best of my ability, All Might said as he received Inko's hand. Well, ma'am, I'm sure you know why we are here, Naomasa said with a smile. Ah yes, his things, Inko said with a little skip in her step. Izuku said he only wanted one thing from his room. Please come this way. Inko said as she led the two men to Midoriya's room. Inko slowly opened the door to reveal Midoriya's room. The room was littered with All Might memorabilia and everything related to All Might. All Might felt a stab of guilt in his chest. The guilt seemed to never for him when it came to Midoriya. This much. He looked up to me this much, empathetic All Might said in a low voice as he picked up an All Might figurine. Izuku said he wanted his notebooks. He said they were hidden somewhere in a hole in his bed. Inko said as she looked underneath the bed. Inko quickly found the hole in the bed and pulled out multiple notebooks. Ah, here they are. He said this was all he wanted. He told me I could give all the All Might toys and posters to kids in need. Inko said, handing the notebooks to Naomasa. How thoughtful of him, Naomasa said as he peeked into the notebooks. Wow, these notes are amazing, Naomasa said as he skimmed the notebooks and put them in a bag. All Might was still taking in Midoriya's room and all the posters. Midoriya even had posters only diehard fans could have. Toshi, Naomasa said as he put his hand on the blonde man's shoulder. Oh, of course, let us go, All Might said, snapping out of his haze and walking back to the living room. Will Izuku be okay in UA? I'm glad he's been given another chance, but I can't afford to lose him again. Inko said sadly. I promise he will be okay. All Might said, turning into his muscle form before reverting back into his skeletal form. Yes, we will all be keeping a close eye, don't you worry, Mom. Naomasa said as he picked up his hat from the door. Thank you, Inko said with a smile as she waved both of the men goodbye. At UA, this is important, so listen up, Aizawa said loudly, grabbing the students' attention. They were all standing in front of the UA dorms waiting to go inside. Yaoyorozu, Tenya, Uraraka, Kirishima. On that night you four went to go save Bakugo, Aizawa stated as he looked at four students he mentioned. Judging by a couple of your faces, I can tell you all knew full well that they intended to do so. Had All Might not been forced to retire, save Hakagear, Gyro, and Bakugo, you would all be expelled. You betrayed our trust. Those who went and those who knew of the plan, so you better start rebuilding our trust through the proper channels, Aizawa said. Aizawa spoke briefly about receiving provisional licenses afterward. We will speak more on your provisional licenses tomorrow. Please meet in Class 1A. After that you can all go to your rooms and rest up, Aizawa said as he walked up the steps. The students quickly followed Aizawa into the large building. Aizawa was waiting patiently in the room when the horde of students came pouring in. The students all took their seats and waited for Aizawa to start the class. I brought you all here to the classroom because I have to introduce you all to someone, Aizawa said as he signaled someone over to the front. The door to the classroom slowly opened to reveal a well-dressed black-haired teen coming into the room. This is Izuku Midoriya. He will be teaching here at UA. The podium's yours, Aizawa said as he got into his cocoon sleeping bag and let Midoriya take the podium. Flashback. He could teach our students, Nezu suggested as he turned to face Naomasa. Many teachers almost jumped out of their seats at the suggestion. Principal Nezu, Naomasa said as he looked over to Nezu. Principal, you can't be serious, Vlad King said facing Nezu. I'm very serious, Nezu said firmly. It seems the villains are more prepared to attack our unsuspecting students each day. I believe Deku could provide our students with the knowledge to fight against this. Deku has been a villain himself. He knows how the villains think more than any of us in this room, Nezu explained to the teachers. He harmed 2 students. Who's to say he won't do the same thing again? Midnight asked. Actually, I recently found out the 2 students who were attacked by Deku were healed by him right after their battle. Deku is also not fond of murder or pointless violence, Naomasa added. Many teachers nodded slightly at the sound of that. Nezu is right about one thing. Our students are not prepared to face villains at all. They are not aware how insane and dangerous some of these guys are, Aizawa said, applying some eye drops to his dead eyes. You know what, I'm sold. I say we let him in. He sounds groovy, Present Mike added loudly. Yes, I too agree with Principal Nezu's suggestion. The sooner our students are prepared the better. I cannot bear to go through one of the students being kidnapped again, All Might said firmly. If All Might thinks this boy can prepare our students for the future, so do I, Midnight added. Alright, let's take a vote. All those in favor of allowing Izuku Midoriya aka Deku to teach the students of UA, raise your hand, asked Nezu loudly. Nezu, All Might, Present Mike, and Midnight raised their hands first. Cementos and Ectoplasm raised their hands not long after. The only teachers left were Aizawa, Vlad King, and 13. I suppose he is quite knowledgeable, 13 said slowly, raising her hand. With that, Midoriya was in. However, one more hand went up before Nezu could say anything. Just know I'll be keeping a close eye on him, Aizawa said as he raised his hand. That's the spirit Eraser had, Present Mike said loudly, using his chair's wheels to glide over to Aizawa. Aizawa simply rolled his eyes in response. Vlad King still had his hand down, but he was beginning to think the idea wasn't a bad one. Alright, that settles it. Midoriya will teach the hero course students starting the coming week, Nezu said, stamping Naomasa's request. Naomasa was overjoyed he got Midoriya into UA one way or another, but there was still one more thing he had to discuss. There is one more thing I must tell you all. Naomasa said, looking at the teachers and then to Nezu. Of course, detective, Nezu said gladly. It involves the student Bakugo Katsuki, Naomasa stated. Did something happen to him? Cementos asked. Well, as you all know, Deku is the same age as our students. Did not cross your minds at all how someone so young became a villain? Naomasa asked the teachers. Now that you're pointing it out, it is strange to see someone that young become a villain. Midnight added. Well, truth be told, Midoriya never intended to become a villain. In fact, Midoriya wanted to be a hero. He was unfortunately born quirkless, however. Bakugo was Midoriya's tormentor most of his life. He bullied and harassed him for being inferior, Naomasa said solemnly. Naomasa then proceeded to tell the students of Midoriya's life and his past. Why Midoriya was who he was today. So one of our students did such a thing, Nezu said angrily with a hint of sadness. The rest of teachers, including Aizawa, were silent after hearing about Midoriya and his past. This will not go unpunished. I will speak to him, Nezu said firmly. I have some things to say to him too, Aizawa added angrily. Flashback end. Midoriya was wearing a white dress shirt with a black vest and black tie. He wore formal dress shoes and black pants. Hello Class 1A, my name is Izuku Midoriya. I will be teaching you about the villains you will face in the world. I hope we can all get along. Thank you for having me, Midoriya said in a dead tone as he bowed towards the class. Just like Aizawa, they all deadpanned in unison. Diku, Bakugo thought angrily as one eye twitched slightly. A couple students in the room recognized Midoriya almost instantly. Hey, that's Mina, Ochako and Kirishima said together. Tenya Ida shot his hand up, waiting for Midoriya to call on him. Ah yes, Tenya Ida. I'm glad you're doing well. What is your question? Midoriya said as he looked at Tenya with a short smile. The classroom all shot a glance at Tenya and then to Midoriya. It seemed as if they knew each other. Why are you here? Why did you save me back then even though you're a villain? Tenya asked, standing up from his seat. A villain? Are you serious? Said some of the students looking over at Midoriya. I'm going to teach you all, can't you tell? Midoriya said with a low chuckle as he pulled slightly on his vest. As for your second question, maybe I saw your potential to become a true hero, or maybe I just didn't want to see someone so young die that day, Midoriya said, wiping away his smile. Midoriya will be teaching you all how to fight against villains and teach the different types you will encounter as a hero, so you better pay attention. Aizawa piped up as he took a sip from his protein bag. Bakugo could no longer contain his anger and snapped. Deku, you shit, Bakugo shouted angrily as he jumped out of his desk, dashed towards Midoriya. Aizawa quickly shot up from his sleeping bag and binded Bakugo. Bakugo, settle down, Aizawa commanded angrily. Good to see you too, Bakugo, Midoriya said, looking at the blonde-haired boy, containing his subtle grudge against him. Bakugo flinched slightly at Midoriya referring to him so formally. I know you two have history, but try to keep it under control. Now go back to your seat, Aizawa said angrily as he released Bakugo from his binding. You two know each other, Uraraka whispered to Bakugo, who sat down. Shut it, Bakugo shot back, glaring at Midoriya. Is that all, Aizawa? Midoriya said, glancing over to the man. Yes, you can go now. That goes for all you two, except you, Bakugo. I need to speak with you in private, Aizawa said, dismissing everyone. Midoriya simply walked out of the classroom into his dorm room. He was assigned a student dorm, however his room was at the end of the hall next to Todoroki Shoto. All the students were following Midoriya while keeping their distance, until Tenya caught up to Midoriya and caught his attention. Midoriya-sensei, Tenya said loudly, catching the black-haired boy's attention. Midoriya turned around and faced Tenya and all the students behind him. There's no need for that. Just Midoriya is fine, Midoriya said, looking at Tenya. Thank you for everything, Tenya said loudly as he quickly bowed towards Midoriya, thanking him for everything. Midoriya was not used to praise, so he wasn't sure how to react. No problem, just don't go off and do something so stupid again, Midoriya said as he turned to go to his room. The students all followed until he shut the door to his room. After that, they all dispersed and hung out in the huge living room. Aizawa was speaking to Bakugo about Midoriya and his situation. You're part of the reason this guy is a villain, Aizawa stated coldly. Bakugo was silent. He didn't know Midoriya had turned into a villain because of his words. Nobody ever told him anything about bullying Midoriya. In fact, the other kids and teachers joined in too most of the time. He never saw anything wrong with it. Those teachers should be fired for what they did. If it was up to me, you would be expelled here and now. But the principal is such a forgiving guy, he's given you another chance, Aizawa explained coldly. Bakugo was still silent. He was processing everything. Go to his office tomorrow, Bakugo. That is all I have to say to you, Aizawa said as he made his way into the hallway. Bakugo stood alone in the room. He gripped the door handle, causing many explosions. Deku, you're ruining everything, Bakugo said angrily as he flung the door open and made his way to his room. Later that day, the students had just finished setting up their rooms and were all having fun in the living room, all except Tsuyu Asui and Bakugo Katsuki. Kirishima asked the question that was on all of their minds. So what do you guys think about Midoriya? Kirishima asked the students. This too is on my mind. I have immense respect for him, but I would like to know what you all think as well, Tenya said as he violently did his usual karate chop arm motion. I think the fact that he's a villain kinda puts me on edge, Kaminari said with a low chuckle. Yay, what if he kills one of us? Minda said quickly. Do you know what quirk he even has? Gyro asked Tenya. I'm not sure myself. Maybe he will go over it in class, Tenya replied quickly. Well, he's nothing like how we met him at the mall. He wasn't happy and fun at all. Mina pouted. Yay, it's a bit unsettling that he can change his expression so drastically, Kirishima said. He seems really sad. Uraraka said, shifting slightly in the couch. Yeah, I noticed that too. He also seemed super bored, Zero added quickly. As long as he doesn't try anything, I don't care, Todoroki said in a low, cold voice. The room grew silent for a bit when Mina broke the silence. Hey guys, so me and the girls were thinking, why don't we have a competition to show off our rooms? Mina said happily. Midoriya was working on his lesson plan for the week when he decided to go downstairs and get some tea. Midoriya went downstairs and passed the students in the living room to make himself a cup of tea. They were all in their pajamas and indoor clothing. Midoriya was still in his formal attire still. The low sound of whispering students could be heard. How long are you all going to stare? Midoriya asked, taking a sip of tea and turning around. A lot of the students jumped after being discovered by Midoriya. Mina, however, was unaffected and nervously made her way over to Midoriya. Hey Sue, we were going to show off our rooms and we wanted to know if you wanted to come. Mina said happily. I'm sorry, Miss Ashido, I have to prepare my lesson plan for the week. Midoriya responded, setting down his teacup. Oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. Mina responded with a solemn smile. Very well, if that is all, I'll be off to my room, Midoriya said. Midoriya quickly washed his cup and went upstairs to his room. The students all began to whisper again about their new teacher. I wanted to get to know him more, Mina pouted. He has piqued my interest as well. He seems dark, Takoyami added, looking up at the ceiling. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's all go and see some rooms, Mina shouted with glee. The night went by rather fast and all the students went to bed not long after their small room competition. The next morning, 6:30 a.m., Bakugo was in the principal's office at Nezu's request. I'm sure you know why you're here, Bakugo, Nezu said, breaking the silence in the room. Yes, sir, Bakugo responded somewhat angrily. Bakugo was hot-headed and crude, but he understood his place when it came to Principal Nezu. Your old friend Midoriya, I understand you tormented him in the past, Nezu said bluntly, getting straight to the point. Why is he teaching at UA? Bakugo asked loudly, dodging the question. Midoriya will be teaching the students at UA how to better understand the villains in this society, Nezu responded quickly. Now answer the question. Did you or did you not bully Midoriya? Nezu said, raising his voice. Yeah, I did some stuff, Bakugo said, his voice somewhat shaky. I see. Bakugo, I have decided not to expel you for this horrible action, but in turn I expect a formal apology from you to Midoriya, Nezu explained to Bakugo. What, you want me to apologize to Deku, a villain? Bakugo retorted angrily. This is not up for debate, Bakugo. Apologize to Midoriya or you will be expelled, Nezu said, narrowing his eyes. Bakugo shuddered a bit at the sight of Nezu being so serious. Yes, sir, Bakugo said, a low voice. Very well, you can go to class now, Nezu said as he turned to face the paperwork on his desk. Bakugo left the room and made his way to Class 1A. In time, Bakugo, you will know that Midoriya almost took his life because of you. But for now, take the first step at redemption, Nezu said in a low voice as he watched the blonde teen walk slowly in the hallway. In Class 1A, as I told you all yesterday, our first priority is to acquire provisional licenses. Hero licenses are a serious responsibility. They are directly concerned with matters of life and death. As such, the exam to receive qualification is very hard. Even the average yearly passing for just the provisional license exam is only about 50%. Aizawa explained to the class. It's that hard just for a provisional license, Minda asked loudly. So starting today, each one of you will be devising at least 2 super moves, Aizawa said, signaling 4 teachers in. The students all cheered in joy at the sound of super moves. Cementos, Midnight, Ectoplasm, and Midoriya each walked into the room. Midoriya was not in costume as the other teachers. His costume was still being revised by police and other costume company. Midoriya instead was dressed in his vest and tie for the day. Some of the students whispered amongst themselves about Midoriya. Aizawa and some of the teachers then went on to explain the importance of super moves and all its possible uses. Alright, change into your costumes and assemble in Gamma Gym, Aizawa said. At the Gamma Gym, the teachers and Midoriya were all waiting for the students to arrive. I will make training dummies for the students, Ectoplasm said to the group. And I will make the terrain, Cementos added. The rest of us will focus on helping the students create their super moves, Aizawa said as he looked over at Midnight and Midoriya. Speaking of, here are some notes I devised for every single student in this class, Midoriya said as he handed each of the teachers a packet full of improvements and possible uses for each of the students' quirks. These are amazing, Ectoplasm said, flipping through the packet. Wow, these are full of great ideas, Cementos added happily. Thank you, Midoriya. This will make things a bit easier, Aizawa said as he put the packet on his clipboard. Not long after, the students all began to pour into the gym. Cementos and Ectoplasm soon set up the gym and let the students begin their training. Midoriya was taking notes on all the students when the door behind him opened, happy to see everyone going at it. All Might said, "For, although I wasn't asked to come, I didn't have anything else to do so. I am here," All Might said, switching into his muscle form briefly. Midoriya turned to look at All Might and then directed his attention to the students. Midoriya was taking more detailed notes on each of them. A loud explosion could be heard in the gym. Bakugo Katsuki, an overly aggressive fighting style. Midoriya mumbled in a low voice as he began to write furiously in his notebook. All Might made his way over next to Midoriya, who was sucked into his notes. "Young Midoriya, how is Class 1A treating you?" All Might asked. There was a short pause and Midoriya rose his head from his notebook and spoke. "It is the first day and my class doesn't start until tomorrow, so I am not sure yet," Midoriya replied quickly. All Might got the vibe that Midoriya was not in the mood to talk. "Of course. Well, I will see you later," All Might said as he made his way back to Midnight and the others. "Don't force it, All Might," Aizawa said as he looked over to Midoriya. "Yes, you're right. I must focus my attention on the students," All Might said as he made his way over to Kirishima. All Might was giving all the students a bit of advice and tips. "Teaching for dummies," Aizawa and Midoriya said in unison as they spotted the book in All Might's back pocket. The next day, in Class 1A, Midoriya was going to finally have his first official class as a teacher. Unlike the other students in the class, Midoriya was not nervous at all. Aizawa stepped off the podium, allowing Midoriya to take the front. Midoriya was to remain under Aizawa's supervision when he was teaching the students. "Good morning, class," Midoriya greeted with his cold, dead eyes. "Gee, good morning," replied the students nervously. "I'm going to get right to it. This is villain training, and I will be teaching you all about the different types of villains you will meet in the world. Make sure to pay close attention. You don't want to be caught unprepared or dead," Midoriya explained bluntly to the students. Momo raised her hand slowly. "Question Yaoyorozu?" Midoriya asked, looking over to Momo. Yes. How will we be graded?" Momo asked shyly. "You will be graded on your ability to remember and handle certain situations in and out of practical training," Midoriya replied quickly. "Practical training?" murmured some of the students. "Yes. In fact, I want you all to meet me in Gamma Gym. Wear your hero costumes as you will all be working on your super moves afterward," Midoriya said as he grabbed his stack of papers and headed into the hallway. The students all stood in the room wondering what practical experience could Midoriya possibly teach them. In Gamma Gym, the students were all lined up waiting for Midoriya to arrive in the gym. Aizawa was off on the side supervising. "Hey Bakugo, what do you think about the new teacher?" Kirishima asked. "If he wants to fight, I quote LL crush him," Bakugo replied, booming with confidence. Bakugo was pumped for Midoriya's class in particular. He wanted to give Midoriya a good beating. "I'm still not sure what we are going to learn," Momo said as she looked over to Gyro. "Hey, I mean, shouldn't we be focusing more on our provisional licenses?" Minta added loudly. The students all agreed with Minta for once. "Yes, I would rather put my time into working on my super move," Todoroki said bluntly. "What the point of your license and super moves, if you're just going to be found dead in a ditch somewhere?" Midoriya said loudly, walking to the center of the gym in his villain costume. Midoriya's costume was unaltered for the most part. The gadgets were all confiscated except for the smoke bombs he had. The students all stared at Midoriya in his costume. It was not heroic looking in the very least. "Now then, today's lesson will be all about action and reaction," Midoriya stated loudly. The students all looked at each other with confused faces, including Bakugo. "There are sorts of villains in this world, but today we will talk about villains whose conviction far exceeds rational thought. This type of villain holds strongly to their beliefs and cannot be convinced or reasoned with. Weak-willed or unexperienced heroes should not engage this villain unless they are absolutely certain they can take them out," Midoriya explained to the group of students. "If the villains try anything, I'll just beat them into the ground," Bakugo shouted loudly, interrupting Midoriya. "Will you now?" Midoriya said, pausing for a moment. "Bakugo, could you please come forward?" Midoriya said, looking over to Bakugo. Bakugo walked towards the front with a mean look in his eye. Midoriya wore a dead and bored expression as usual. Aizawa was vigilant and was prepared to intervene if necessary. "Are you ready, Bakugo?" Midoriya asked. "I'm going to fuck you up," Bakugo said, making some small explosions in his palm. Midoriya looked directly at Bakugo and made a small sinister smile. Bakugo was about to dash at Midoriya before he stopped dead in his tracks. "What's wrong, Katsuki?" Midoriya asked in a murderous tone. The room grew cold and everyone stared at Midoriya in horror, including Bakugo. Midoriya's usual demeanor had done a complete 180. Midoriya was now oozing bloodlust and murderous intent towards all the students. Bakugo gulped and took a single step back. "You're all heroes, right?" Midoriya said, looking at the terrified students in the back. "This feeling." Tenya choked, taking a step back. "Well, what the?" Uraraka said, shuddering at the sight of Midoriya. "Well, what are you waiting for? Come get me, heroes." Midoriya shouted, taking another step forward. The students were all frozen in horror, along with Bakugo, who was sweating profusely. "Show me what you're made of. Show me your blood," Midoriya shouted as he took another step forwards. The room grew cold and everyone had their eyes fixated on Midoriya. They all saw death in his eyes. Bakugo and some other students fell backward. They were going to die. Midoriya was going to kill them all, and there was nothing they could do about it. It was as if gravity itself multiplied 10x over their bodies. Aizawa had seen enough. He prepared his bindings and quickly made his way to Midoriya to restrain him. In that moment, however, Midoriya stopped his intent to murder and turned back into his usual self. "You guys can calm down. I'm not going to hurt you. That is all for today. I will teach you how to overcome it, don't worry," Midoriya said, dusting himself off and walking towards Aizawa. The students were dead silent, some students still frozen in fear. Bakugo, however, was in shock at what just occurred. "Are you serious?" Ajiro choked. "I couldn't do anything," Todoroki said as he fell backward and sat down. "That's what we're up against as heroes," Kirishima said, wiping the sweat off his hands. "I was afraid of Deku." Bakugo choked in a low voice. He looked down at his shaky hands. "Quite a first lesson. They might be terrified of you now, you know," Aizawa said, looking over to his students. "The world is far more terrifying," Midoriya responded coldly. 2 days later, the students were working on their super moves. Some students were having a bit more trouble than others. Some of them are having a hard time, Midoriya said to Aizawa, who was also observing the students. "Unfortunately," Aizawa sighed. There was a short pause and only the sound of explosions and students could be heard. "Got nothing better to do," Midoriya sighed as he walked towards one of the students. Nina was having trouble coming up with a super move despite All Might and Ectoplasm's advice. "Man, why can't I think of anything?" Mina sighed as she sat down on the floor. Midoriya walked up behind Mina and spoke. "Do you need some help?" Midoriya asked politely. You scared me." Mina pouted as she turned to face Midoriya. "And yes, I do need help," Mina said with an embarrassed chuckle. "I'm surprised you aren't afraid of me. The other students seem to be avoiding me," Midoriya said, looking over at the other students. "Well, if you wanted to do anything to us, you would have done it by now. As for the others, they are just nervous since you were a villain and all," Mina explained with a smile. "I see. Well, what are you having trouble with?" Midoriya asked the pink-skinned girl. "Well, just my super move, really. I can't seem to think of anything to do with my quirk." Mina sighed. "Let me check my notes," Midoriya said, pulling out his notebook. Midoriya flipped to the page on Mina's quirk and began to review his notes. Mina was curious as to what Midoriya had written down on her and was on her tippy toes trying to sneak a peek. "Take a look," Midoriya said, handing the notebook to Mina. "Wow, these are cool. You got everyone in here," Mina said, curiously flipping through the notebook. "Read up on your page, maybe you will find some inspiration," Midoriya said, showing her the bookmark on her. "Okay, let's see here," Mina said cheerfully as she began to read the notes Midoriya had on Mina and her quirk. "You wrote down here something to do with my acid solubility and viscosity," Mina said, trying her best to think of something. "Your acid has many uses. You just need to think outside the box," Midoriya explained to Mina. "Oh," Mina exclaimed. It seemed as if a light bulb went off in her head. "I think I got it. Maybe I can make my acid stronger and make a wall to block stuff," Mina said proudly. "That seems like a good idea. Stick with that and work on it," Midoriya replied. "I will. Thank you," Mina said, cheerfully handing Midoriya back his notebook. Midoriya retrieved his notebook and began to walk towards another student when a loud explosion caught his attention. "AP shot," Bakugo shouted as he tested out his new super move. The move worked like a bullet. A straight shot meant to do more damage in a small radius. "Nailed it," Bakugo exclaimed as he watched the rock break apart. Midoriya quickly grew disinterested and turned back around when he heard Bakugo and Aizawa shout something. "Hey, watch out," Bakugo yelled. "Idiot, watch out," Aizawa shouted as he prepared his bindings. Midoriya turned around quickly and saw All Might about to be crushed by the rock Bakugo had just destroyed. All Might was frail in his weakened form, a rock that size could break his spine or worse. Aizawa was too far to do anything. Midoriya, however, was the only one close enough to reach him. Midoriya deeply inhaled and exhaled and dashed towards All Might. Mental state vigilance. Everything was moving in slow motion for Midoriya, but to everyone else, he was moving at an inhuman speed. Midoriya reached All Might and pushed him to the side, causing him to fall over. Midoriya, however, was not going to be able to dodge the rock. Midoriya lifted his arm, preparing himself for the debris. Crash. The concrete slammed into Midoriya and the entire gym grew silent. Shit, Aizawa said as he began to run towards Midoriya before he suddenly stopped. That one hurt a bit, Midoriya said as he lifted himself off the floor and dusted himself off like it was nothing. Young Midoriya, are you okay? All Might said, rushing up to Midoriya. I'm fine, Midoriya replied, doing a circle motion stretch with his shoulder. Because of me you got hurt. Forgive me, All Might apologized, bowing towards Midoriya. There was no reason for you to die, that's all there is to it, Midoriya replied bluntly and returned to what he was doing. The students were all in awe at what Midoriya had just done and the crazy speed he just demonstrated. You know, you're pretty nice for a villain, Mina said with a smile as Midoriya walked by. That's not it. I'm just not sure what to do anymore, Midoriya said in a very low voice as he reflected shortly on his life and quickly proceeded to the next student. Kaminari was a bit slow when it came to most things, and coming up with a super move was no exception. Hello Kaminari, Midoriya greeted as he walked up to the yellow-haired teen. Hey man, or I mean sensei, Kaminari said, quickly correcting himself. Kaminari was somewhat nervous at Midoriya's presence like the rest of the class, but he was the most sociable one out of all the boys. Just Midoriya is fine. So what are you having trouble with? Midoriya asked the yellow-haired boy. You see, my quirk is very wild. I can't let loose unless I want to hurt everyone around me, Kaminari sighed. I see, Midoriya said as he flipped open his notebook to Kaminari's page. Kaminari put his hands in his pocket and kicked at the dust on the floor as he waited for Midoriya. So what's your strongest move? Midoriya asked, looking up from his noted briefly. I can discharge my body. I can put out 1.3 million watts, Kaminari said proudly. That quite a lot, but I'm guessing it puts you out of commission afterward, and it's not a guaranteed win either from what I've seen at the sports festival, Midoriya explained, closing his notebook and looking directly at Kaminari. Yeah, haha, Kaminari said as he chuckled shyly. I got an idea, Midoriya said as he walked over to a locker in the far side of the gym. Kaminari was curious as to what Midoriya had in mind. Some of the other students began to eavesdrop a little too. Midoriya opened the locker that was full of cleaning equipment and quickly picked out the broom and made his way back to Kaminari. All right, Midoriya said as he approached Kaminari with the broom. A broom? Kaminari asked with a look of visible confusion. Midoriya dismantled the broom and ripped off the rubber coating on the broom and revealed a large hollow piece of copper. You are going to use some electricity on me, Midoriya said as he stabbed the large rod into the floor, allowing it to stand freely. Are you sure? Kaminari said nervously. Yes, I'm sure, don't be afraid, Midoriya said as he took a few steps away from the copper rod and stood a few meters from Kaminari. Okay then, Kaminari said as he discharged some electricity. Midoriya, however, was unharmed and watched as the electricity shot like a bullet towards the copper pole. Whoa, that's so cool, Kaminari exclaimed, looking over at Midoriya before doing it again. Copper conducts electricity pretty well. Maybe look into some support gear, Midoriya said as he began to make his way back. Aizawa. Hey man, thanks, Kaminari said, calling out to Midoriya. No problem, Midoriya replied, turning to face Kaminari. Midoriya soon made his way back next to Aizawa. Thanks, Aizawa said as he put on some eye drops. Sure, Midoriya replied. Later that day, all the students were all having fun in the living room, including Bakugo for once. The sound of laughter and students could be heard. Bakugo and Kirishima were having a conversation about their power and strength. Midoriya was rather busy as a teacher. He had to make a lesson plan for every week and he had to make sure it was appropriate. So Kaminari, did you get your support item yet? Mina asked, sliding over to Kaminari. No, they are still working on it, but it's going to be awesome, Kaminari said, puffing out his chest. The students all laughed with Kaminari. Yay, Midoriya sure knows what's up, you know, Kaminari added. And that incident with All Might, I'm starting to think he's not so bad, Gyro said, waving his earphone jacks in the air. Bakugo got annoyed at the sound of Midoriya's name. Yay, I wonder what he's got planned for us tomorrow since Class 1B has the gym all day, Uraraka added. Hey, do any of you guys know how he became a villain? Kaminari asked at random. The room grew silent at the question. I'm curious as well. He's our age yet he seems so different. Momo added, a hint of sadness could be heard. Hey Bakugo, don't you know him kinda? I think Aizawa said you two had history, Kirishima asked as he looked over to Bakugo. Shut it, shitty hair, Bakugo replied angrily. I heard he killed a bunch of heroes with his quirk. I heard it can rip people apart, Minda said, butting into the conversation. Really? Kaminari said with a gasp. Bakugo sneered at that comment. He knew Midoriya was a quirkless weakling like always. Very interesting theory, Midoriya said as he walked by and into the kitchen. Minda jumped with a loud shout and the rest of the students grew silent. Nice to hear some of you don't despise me, Midoriya said, warming up his water. The living room was silent until Momo Yaoyorozu spoke up. Midoriya, may I ask why you became a villain? Momo asked nervously. Midoriya slightly cringed at the thought of his attempted suicide. It's personal, Midoriya replied coldly. Hey, what quirk do you have? Kaminari asked, trying to avoid awkward silence. This guy fucking quirkless, Bakugo said with a sneer. Hey man, not cool, Kirishima said. No, he's right, I am quirkless, Midoriya said, pouring hot water into a coffee mug. Still useless as ever, huh, Deku? Bakugo sneered yet again. Some things never change, do they, Katsuki? Midoriya said, coldly glaring at Bakugo. The air was tense. Someone who made himself out of nothing versus someone who was born with everything. Rest up. Tomorrow is going to be a long one, Midoriya said as he grabbed his mug and made his way to the stairs that led up to his room. So he's quirkless? Tenya asked everyone in the room. I guess so, man, Kaminari said, not sure how to react. Well, quirk or not, he's pretty nice, Mina said, raising her hands in the air. He's quirkless. Always has been, always will be, Bakugo said rather loudly before stomping off to his room. I suppose we should all rest up then, Momo said as she got up from the couch. Yeah, Uraraka said as she glanced over at Bakugo. The next morning. Good morning, class, Aizawa greeted the students. Good morning, the students greeted back. Aizawa went about his homeroom and he instructed the students to meet at Ground Beta. Ground Beta, are we doing some practical training? Kirishima asked. Yes, so go change into your costumes and meet there, Aizawa said, dismissing the class. Midoriya was at Ground Beta waiting for the class when he was greeted by All Might. Good morning, my boy, All Might greeted with a smile. Don't call me that, Midoriya is fine, Midoriya replied, inspecting his smoke bombs. I've been meaning to talk to you. Whenever you're ready, please make sure to let me know, All Might said before heading towards the observation room. Midoriya didn't say a word. He simply stood in the open, taking in the breeze. Class 1A soon arrived, and much to Midoriya's surprise, they all greeted him, all except for Bakugo, of course. So today we will be having heroes versus villains, Midoriya announced to the class. Didn't we do this at the beginning of the year? Kaminari asked. Yes, Aizawa told me beforehand you all had done this exercise before. But today will be different. Instead of facing each other, you will be facing me, Midoriya explained to the students. Like one-on-one? Kirishima asked. No, you will be paired in teams of 2 and 1 team of 3. Here is the list, Midoriya said, handing students a clipboard of the teams. The teams went as followed. Bakugo, Uraraka, Todoroki, Momo, Jiro, Hagakure, Kirishima, Ajiro, Koda, Kaminari, Shiro, Mineta, Takoyami, Mina, Asui, Sato, Shoji, Tenya, Aoyama. Guess we're together, huh, Uraraka said with a smile. Quiet round face, Bakugo responded. The Todoroki and Momo pair was fairly awkward and no words were exchanged. We got this, Kirishima shouted to his 2 members. Yeah, Hagakure and Jiro responded with a shout of their own. Let's do this, Anjiro said to Koda. Yeah, Koda responded in a low voice. Heck yeah, we're basically unstoppable, Kaminari and Shiro said in unison. Wish I had been paired with one of the girls, Mineta said, looking over to the girls. Maybe next time, Mineta, Takoyami replied with a scoff. Girl power, Mina exclaimed, hugging Asui. Hiro Asui replied with a smile. Let's do our best, Tenya said, doing his usual arm motion. With my sparkle we can't lose, Aoyama replied with a twinkle. Alright, let's make it interesting, shall we? If you volunteer to go first and win, I will give everyone an on Aizawa's next exam, Midoriya announced to the class in his usual bored tone. If you lose, however, it's cleaning duty for all of you for an entire week, Midoriya added. The class was hesitant, but 2 hands shot up quickly. I just want to beat you down, Bakugo said, walking up to Midoriya. Ew, I really need the Uraraka said, rubbing the back of her head. I suppose you both will go first, Midoriya said as he looked behind Bakugo and at the rest of the students. Anyone else? Midoriya asked. The entire class shot their hands up. I think you're looking down on us, sensei, Kirishima exclaimed. Ye shouted the class as they got fired up for the fight. Alright then, Midoriya said with a short chuckle. All the students except Bakugo and Uraraka made their way to the observation room and watched as the first battle was about to begin. The rules were as followed. The heroes must defeat or restrain the villain for them to win. The same rules apply to the villain. Everyone was in position and the remaining students were in the observation room. All Might was the announcer and Aizawa was in a nearby building keeping an eye on Midoriya. Ready? All Might announced over the intercom. You ready, round face? Bakugo asked. Yes, Uraraka responded quickly. Just support me and watch me pound this bastard's face in, Bakugo said with an evil grin. Go, All Might said, announcing the start of the fight. Alright, Bakugo, let's see how much good your quirk will do you, Midoriya said, putting on his hood and arranging his metal mask.